Good morning, everyone. This time I would call the Nash County Board of Commissioners recess meeting from May the 4th back to order. It is customary for us to begin each meeting in this room with the invocation by a commissioner. And at this time, if you're joining us online, you're welcome to use this time to join in our prayer. You can use this time to have your own prayer at home or wherever you may be, at your office, or certainly you can use it for a moment of silence. And then we would have a pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Vice Chair Wayne Outlaw. And at this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Sue Leggett for our invocation. If you would stand, please.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we ask that you please be with us today as we conduct the business of Nash County. We ask you to please be with this country during these troubled times and unknown circumstances. Please be with all those who need your strength and your healing and your comfort. Again, we ask your presence here today as we conduct the business of Nash County. May all these things be done in your glory. All these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Lamb, you going to follow the agenda? You want me to just follow the agenda as written?
If you would just do it, I believe Nash Community College has 3 people, so the clerk and I will both exit the room if they're planning to have all 3 in here.
All right. Well, at this time, the first item on the agenda is the presentation of the next year's budget by Nash Community College, and I would certainly ask the president to come in with the people he may have with him this morning. No, it's 3 of them. Good morning.
Good morning.
I had to do a restart this morning. I apologize.
Hey, that's all right. That's not a problem. How is everyone?
We're good. I didn't realize I had an agenda in the front of the book. I usually have it loose, but I'm good and ready to go now. Welcome.
Thank you.
This may be your first time doing this.
This is.
And it's going to be somewhat different than we have done it in the past, but that's okay. We've all learned to adjust, and glad to see you this morning. And please go ahead with your presentation and introduce the people you have with you if you like.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. This is my first one, and I know it's different, but every day is different. So this has been a little unusual. Just to kind of bring you up to date real quickly, I just started my 7th month. So I finished 6 months, and what an incredible first 6 months. No state budget and a pandemic. So, it's got to get better from here. So, but honestly, I told the board last week in an update that, and I mean this sincerely, I would not want to be any place but here. So it's been an incredible experience. I brought 2 people with me today. The really smart one that's going to tell you about the budget and make me look really good in a minute is Adrian Covington, who is my CFO. And of course, everyone knows Paul Jaber, who's the chairman of the Board of Trustees, and he will kind of bring up the rear and fill y'all in on some things in a moment. And what I want to do, I did not put them in any slides, but I will get them to y'all later on. I just wanted to kind of bring you up to date on some things that have been going on and just let you know how good the college is, even in this time that is such a strange time. But we are so appreciative of the partnership between Nash County and Nash Community College. I can't express enough appreciation for it. It continues to be incredible for us, and as you know, we couldn't do it without you. So we appreciate it so very much. Just to give you a few data points about enrollment, we have had a really good year this year. We had a really good year last year. You heard a lot of news press about community colleges growing this year. Well, let me assure you, Nash Community College has had a steady, slow but steady growth for the last 7 or 8 years. So we continue on that track. In 18-19, which would have been our last full year, if you look at our curriculum, our continuing ed, our diplomas, our certificate programs, we served around 17,300 people. This year, it seems like less, or the number is less, but I'll explain why. This year, we're at 15,000, right, almost 16,000 people, which would seem a lot less, but please keep in mind, with COVID-19, we lost an entire quarter of continuing education because those type of courses can't go online. And so we would have been far ahead of last year had that not happened, but we still maintained very well, so I'm very proud of that. To give you an idea of campus use, before COVID-19, and we hope after COVID-19, and we know it will be, at any given day on campus, there are around 2,500 people that utilize the facility. If you look on a maximum day, that goes up to around 3,000 to 3,200. And another way we gauge the use of campus is by the use of the wireless. And at any given time, any given minute, hour of the day, at the campus, about 1,900 people are using our wireless services. So IT is extremely important to us, and the campus is very active. Now, we've been closed for a while. Classes are going on everything online, but when we open back up, I expect nothing less. I expect actually to see more activity on campus, as well as in other areas. But keep in mind that those numbers, that 17,000, the 2,500 a day, does not take into account things like Brown Auditorium use and other uses across the campus that the community and others use. Brown Auditorium alone adds about 50,000 additional people to the campus every year. Next year at this meeting, I will have the data ready for 2 years of who actually uses the campus. And I will tell you, I'm going to give you an estimate, and I shouldn't say it in public because you'll hold me to it later on, but I'm going to say conservatively it's around 70,000 people. But I think it's going to be more closer to 70 or 80 or 90,000 people a year that utilize the campus, which is a huge, as you know, economic impact on the county. So we're very happy about that. COVID-19 came along, as you know, as we're all dealing with right now. But let me tell you, I, as president of Nash Community College, in my then 4th month, have never been prouder of a team that I've worked with. They rose to the challenge. And online was not unusual for us. We had been doing online for 5 years. But online to this extent is extremely unusual for us. But let me tell you, within a 5-day period, what we did, we usually take a spring break or an Easter break in April. We changed it to a March break, a spring break, and took that 5 days to pause and get everything ready to go online. In that 5-day period, we got 90+% of our students into the online programs, so that they could continue their certificate, their diploma, whatever they might be in. While that's great, that left 10% out, and that's about 320 students. So that wasn't really good enough. I didn't like that, but we didn't have a choice. Things like welding are a little tough to do online. Online, the electric lineman programs, a little tough to do online. So we had to pause some of those programs. I'm very proud to tell you, as of last week, though, the system office has extended the exemptions under the governor's order to allow us to begin some things like lineman, welding, advanced manufacturing, those critical items, critical programs back starting May 8th. So we'll be able to expand. We'll probably be about 97% completion at that point, and that's, I think, very, very good. There are some things we still haven't got to add back, like cosmetology and all, but we're working on it, and we'll get there. And there have always been exempted programs like basic law enforcement, fire academy have still been going on face-to-face. They were exempted in the governor's order. We have shown that we can socially distance, and we can keep those classes going successfully. So because we were able to prove that, we were able to get some extensions and some expansions so that we can we've got kids, we've got linemen, and we all know hurricane season's coming up. We've already had storms hit. We've got linemen that are within 2 months of being ready to go to work. So we'll be able to get them finished very quickly in the summer and begin another grouping. We also, with the COVID, went into the stay-at-home, work-from-home modality. It has worked very well, but I have to tell you, as I'm sure y'all are, I'm a little tired of Zoom meetings. I like the people, I like the contact, look see people in the eye. But we are abiding by that. The campus has been very positive in the nature of how they've addressed this, and things are going very well. Nash Community College is running well. We're just not very many of us there very often, which is fine. It's very depressing to see the empty parking lots, but it means we're being safe, and I do like that. Some of the current efforts to tell you about that have paid off, we just recently received our veterinary tech program accreditation. We knew it was coming in April. The thing is, you have to start a program and get kids ready to graduate before you can be accredited. So you run into that little fear factor, what if we don't get accredited? We have been. We just received word of that last week, which was great. And then again, we got electric lineman, commercial truck driving, welding, advanced manufacturing, medical assisting, phlebotomy, and physical therapy assistant added back into what we can start offering in May. So all these are under the exemption list of the governor's order and are critical to North Carolina. Moving forward to the new normal, whatever that is, on the 18th, our Child Development Center will reopen for children of first responders and essential personnel. We've got stringent safety precautions in place. Adrian oversees that, the CDC, the Child Development Center, but it will be reopening for essential workers. We're very happy about that. Our summer session starts the 24th of this month. We will be all online except for those exemptions, the CDL, the BLET, the fire, and those things. Our current enrollment, what I worried about was how are students going to flow into the summer and fall. We have, I told you, 90+% students were online in March. I'm not going to tell you they're all flourishing because they're not. There's a proportion of them, and I would have been one of them as a student, that is not flourishing in online. They're doing all right, but they cannot wait to get back into the classroom. So moving forward, what we see with the summer session is something really good. We kind of expected in the back of our mind there might be a drop in enrollment. That is not what we have seen. To give you an example, as of yesterday, which was our 11th day of registration for summer, we had 685 kids enrolled. Everybody's a kid. Last year on the 11th day of enrollment, we had 679. So we're ahead of last year. That's a source of pride for me because it says our online transition worked. Again, it's not the best. We're going to get them back in the classroom as soon as we can, but they are pursuing and continuing their degrees. Along those lines, you may have heard, and I hope you've heard, we did not cancel our graduation, we just postponed it. To me, it is so important that these kids get to walk across the stage and be recognized for what they've accomplished. We're just moving it to at some other point in the future. We're not setting a date yet, but we will be having graduation. For the future, so for the fall, I have a crystal ball at home that I use quite often, and who knows what it's going to be. But what my crystal ball says is that our online programs are going to continue to be one of the rocks of Eastern North Carolina, and one that we get a lot of students coming to. That's going to only continue. Our Nash online department, I think, will grow, but not at the expense of face-to-face or other types of delivery. Again, we have a large proportion of students that want back in the classrooms, and we want them there too, because I'm a firm believer that standing in front of a class and talking face-to-face is probably the best. I also see tremendous increased use of the campus through our continuing education program with training and retraining displaced workers, all the things as we start to recover from this situation that we're under right now. I really believe we will begin to see more and more. We already have a large continuing education component, but I think we'll even see that grow even further. So just to close, and I'll turn it over to Adrian to talk to you about the budget, the real reason why we're here. But I'm completely appreciative of your support in the past. I'm so proud to be with you all here today, and I just want to assure you that with my executive council and myself, Nash Community College is in good hands. So thank you very much. I will turn it over now to Adrian Covington to talk about the budget, unless you have questions.
Any questions for the president? I think we're good right now, sir. We thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for your time this morning and consideration of Nash Community College's 2020-21 county budget request. For the upcoming fiscal year, the college is requesting just under $2.9 million in funding, and this represents a 2% overall increase from the current year's budget of $2.8 million. And the summary of the request as compared to last year's budget is presented on page 1 of the handout that you have. Page 2 of the budget request provides a breakdown of the various levels of the budget, such as general operations, maintenance, and administration. And then page 3 gets into more of the detail of the individual budget spending categories for plant operations and plant maintenance. So line items are estimated using a 2% increase or a more detailed projection based on need or prior spending patterns. The biggest change in these two sections deals with salaries for our custodial and maintenance positions, which we're requesting a 3% increase in the lower paid salary ranges and a 3% increase for other positions. This increase represents approximately $19,000 increase over this year's amount. We will also see increases in our fringe benefits amounts. Retirement, which is paid on all full-time employees, will be increasing from 19.7% to 21.44%. And employer-paid health care premiums will be increasing from $6,300 per employee annually to $6,647 for the upcoming year. The other significant change is in the contracted services line item in plant operations. The college currently utilizes a Nash County Sheriff's deputy during all the hours the campus is open for security. In this year's budget request, the college is asking for an additional deputy to be added during peak campus hours, Monday through Thursday. And these additional hours will total an increase of approximately about $30,000 annually. And those hours will be from 9 to 3, Monday through Thursday. On page 4, we actually have a decrease request in administration expenses for presidential salary supplement, but then an increase in our insurance premiums. And those premiums have gone up over the last couple of years, and that's mainly due to our higher head counts on campus, so the liability insurances. And that's a trend we've been seeing, more of the transition to more part-time students versus full-time. The last section on page 4 is the college's expansion request. The college is requesting to add 1 additional custodial position and 1 additional maintenance position to accommodate additional needed cleaning and maintenance of the college's expanded footprint. The college's continued growth and facilities expansion, especially with the addition of the Continuing Education and Public Services Building, which added approximately 78,000 square foot, requires additional custodial and maintenance services above the recently added new positions. Campus-wide, the college has approximately 106 classrooms, 65 restroom facilities, 254 offices that must be maintained, and that totals approximately 371,000 square feet. So those 2 positions total approximately $100,000. The last page of the request is the county capital funding. And in this year, we're requesting $225,000 for recurring building maintenance, $30,000 to replace a very aged 1989 S10 truck on campus, $7,000 for 2 additional golf carts, and that's just for mobility around campus for our maintenance staff, and $10,000 in maintenance and miscellaneous maintenance and lawn equipment. And then in the next section, $70,000 for the elevator upgrade in the B&I, and that's comparable to what we did this past year with the elevator upgrade in Building A. So those are the original parts in that elevator. $15,000 for wayfinding signage, which is crucial. When you turn on campus, our visitors are lost as to which direction to go, so that is much needed. $30,000 for roof replacement for our Child Development Center, and then $28,000 for a boiler circulating pump. So all in all, total for the capital is $415,000. That's all I have. If you have any questions?
Yes. Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Belfield, go ahead.
going back to page 2, administration, I've noticed from 18 going on up to now, how you're going up and down, up and down. And this year, you're requesting for administration 110, $27,181. That's just from Nash County. That's not the total budget.
That is Nash County's piece, so that represents
All right.
presidential supplement and insurance.
And then
And legal fees and
equipment on that same page, in 18, it was 59,648. Then it's fell 10, next fiscal year 6, down to 3, 10, and now back up 47. Why is that?
Which line item? I'm sorry, are you talking in
I'm
total?
on page 2.
He's at the bottom of page 2.
Red, next to the bottom line.
Oh, for the county capital? Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So,
Equipment. I think that's what that,
oh,
yeah.
for equipment, yes, sir.
Equipment.
In one of those years, we actually bought a new maintenance truck, so that was that big increase in the 2018, 2019 budget.
Then I look over here on page 4, custodian. And this is for expansion. 29 custodian, position 1, $29,500. Is that going to be the total salary
Yes,
for
sir.
that position?
Yes, sir.
You'll have a tough time surviving on that kind of salary.
And that's why we're asking in the other section, when I said the 5% increase, we're trying to get those salaries up, living wage.
Maintenance position, 38,000. I think that's something you need to work on. Golf carts, what are they used for? Is this training?
No, sir, it's for our maintenance staff of traveling around campus.
Oh, traveling around.
We have
campus.
111 acres, so moving building to building.
Any other questions, Mr. Belfield?
I believe those are the ones I highlighted as we were moving along. That's it. If I have any more later on, we'll discuss it.
All right, sounds great. Any other commissioner have a question?
I don't have a question, but, excuse me, I just kind of wanted to highlight a few things that Ms. Covington said. The campus is requesting some custodial and maintenance support. If you go back and you look at the details that I've looked at for custodial, about the same time Z started here, our county manager, who had a few years prior, we had 9 custodial positions. We had almost 287,000 square feet on the campus, and that averaged about 32,000 square feet per custodian. And I've also looked at the county custodial requirements, and actually that's a little less than what the county does. But I wanted to highlight in the custodial, and Ms. Covington did that as well, that they have got about an average of about 3,000 people per day on that campus, 111 acres. They've got 106 classrooms. They've got 64 labs. They've got 190 building support areas, which includes 65 restrooms. And for me, 65 restrooms, and these are not just one-person restrooms for the most part. There are a few single restrooms, but these are multiple-use restrooms. So that in itself is quite a number of restrooms to have to maintain. 254 offices and 9 special areas. So the point I'm trying to make is The custodial on the campus has been steady for a number of years before 14, 15, but that number was maintained at 9 through 18, 19, and those custodians were up to almost 41,000 square feet per. Now, if you don't have any activity going in and out, then it's easy to keep them clean. But obviously, there's a lot of activity going on that campus. So they're asking for a custodial person. Now, I don't know what the revenue stream's going to be. I don't know if it'll support it. The manager will make us aware of all that. But I'm just trying to plant these seeds in your mind so you'll understand what their needs are and the logic behind these needs. They're not just coming here today asking for a custodial person because they want to lighten the load on the other 9 or 10 that they've got. For the maintenance person, they're looking a person that can primarily support HVAC efforts. That's a need on the campus. There are 4 maintenance people on the campus. There are a number of buildings. If you've been out there, you know it's a lot of buildings on campus. Maybe the most immediate need in my mind might be the security position. You've got on that campus, other than the person that supervises security activities, you've got one deputy. One deputy for 111 acres and all those buildings and all those people. So I just highlight those things to you, and I think, again, I don't know if the revenue stream will support it in July. Maybe not. Maybe it'll support it later on, but they are true needs. They are not asking for things that they don't actually need. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw. Other comments or questions?
That's why I highlighted, as we're going along, some things that needed, Commissioner Outlaw got into the details, but I knew these things need to be worked on.
We all do understand that they present the budget.
Yeah.
We're supposed to hold the budget down, right? Do y'all understand that? I'm kidding with you. Point's well taken. Any other commission?
Tell me about your salary increases again, what you're looking to do.
3% for the majority of our employees, but for the lower paid employees, we have about 5 that are under that $30,000 range, 5% increase for those.
What do you call lower paid,
We have about 5 employees that are under the $30,000 range.
that are under 30,000? Okay.
Mr. Covington, at this time, do y'all have any clue what the state's doing with your budget? That would be my assumption.
Right. Not a clue. We're hoping we get expansion budget requests and all of that, but, you know, as this past year, we didn't get any salary increases, so it's kind of a wait-and-see game right now.
This past year, no salary
No
increases
salary increases
from
for
the state?
state-paid employees.
Really? You don't know this answer either, but when would you expect to know more about the state budget? What are you hearing?
You know, normally, we have a state budget prior to June 30th. Last year,
Yep.
it was December when we were getting our budget, so it's just kind of a,
And that was piecemealed in?
that's correct, yes.
Uh,
Our
what
community
they could
college
get it,
budget was
come to terms
in a
on.
mini bill.
Understand. You outlined in the beginning, Dr. Honeycutt did what you expect for enrollment and all. I guess you really just don't know what that'll be either, or what your needs will be, because you don't really know. You're like us, we're sitting here with a lot of unknowns. So your budget is presented as if things would be normal in August as far as enrollment and that kind of stuff. Okay. I'm just trying to get a good feel for how you presented your budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts?
Well, this is a comment.
Yes, sir, Mr. Belfield.
In the future, I see things not going back the way we've known it for a number of years.
Right.
Things are changing. And I see the community colleges rapidly increasing needs in training people for jobs that will exist, that they, right now, they are not, maybe not prepared to handle. So I think we need to start looking at what's going to happen in the future.
Sure.
We can't predict, well, we shouldn't, but we ought to try to be ready, because it just may be well, I'm going to use the word crash on need of training for the jobs that's going to exist
Right.
into the future.
Sure.
And it's going to be, I think, going to be real quick.
Well, I think that's what the community college is always, not always, but in the last 20 years has been there for, and certainly
Yeah.
always adjust very quickly
Well,
and do
we
a
need
great
to
job at that.
we need to be prepared to support them. And the community, as well as the state, need to be prepared to do that.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chairman, you got some words for us this morning, I hope?
Yes, sir, briefly.
Well, take your time.
Dr. Honeycutt took a lot of my time.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and County Commissioners. We appreciate you having us here today to present our budget and so forth, as we do annually. And, but just know that your partnership, the county's partnership with Nash Community College, is the top of the house. There's probably not another more important partnership that we have at our college. So, but on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to thank you for your time, thank you for your energy, thank you for considering our modest increase in our budget, although it is an increase, and I know these are challenging times for the county. I also want to thank two of our trustees that sit on our board, Mary Wells and Wayne Outlaw. They've been very valuable to our Board of Trustees with their insight and guidance and their support, and we really appreciate you being on our board and helping us along. Yes, it's going to be different at Nash Community College, I believe, Mr. Belfeld. It will be a challenging time after we come out of certain things with this virus. But I remember back when it was the financial crisis of 2008 and 9, and I was on the board of Nash Community College then too, is that we had the largest increase, I believe, in enrollment during the time after the financial crisis than we do recently. And the reason why is because we have to retool, retrain America, and retrain our county and locality. So I do believe that enrollment will increase. We don't know for sure, but we think it will, and it could be, especially in Con Ed, it could be exponential in continuing education, because it does take the community colleges to help retrain our areas and so forth after we go through a crisis. And the financial crisis, although this is a lot different than that, but it does hold some of the same attributes that we went through in 2008 and 9 and thereafter that. So again, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to thank you for your time and your effort and your consideration for our modest increase, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or turn it over to these guys behind me that can answer the questions.
Any questions of Mr. Jaber? I just say, if we sit here a little bit more blank-faced than we normally are, this board has not seen any revenue projections yet from our people, and I understand why, because they probably don't quite know where to start, quite frankly. We hope to get a little bit of insight on that before the day's gone. Normally, at this point, we would have seen some projections of revenue, but it's a shot in the dark, as everybody knows, particularly on the sales tax side of what it may be. And a lot of the incidentals tax collections, we were fortunate that most of it took place before the COVID-19, and we got a large percentage of it in, which we generally do in January and February, or December, January, February. But everything else is pretty much up in the air, so we'll just say we're going to do the absolute best we can for the community college. We certainly, as a board, support the college very, very well. We believe in it. We appreciate what you do, and we always ask that you always keep in mind to train the people to use their hands, because that's where we're going to be lacking the most in future years, is my belief. But thank you for being here this morning, and we'll promise that we will do the absolute best we can once we see revenues coming in, and don't know what that will be this morning, but that's the only commitment we will make, sir.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners.
Yes,
Y'all
sir.
have a great day.
Thank you for your support and all y'all do.
Thank y'all.
See you soon.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yep. Mr. Lamb, if you would step back in, and maybe the clerk, or which one is going, we got two presenters next?
Yeah, Janice is going to stay out.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, which is a presentation from the Nash Rocky Mount School Board. And we welcome our new superintendent, Dr. Steve Ellis, at this time. And Dr. Ellis, I would turn the floor over to you, and then I'd have you introduce your also new Chief Financial Officer this morning. I actually don't think the board has officially met her yet.
they
I'm glad to
have.
have her here this morning.
First, I'll say, I think I know what it feels like when a student was sitting in the office corridor waiting to be seen by the principal. So as a former principal, I guess I now understand what those students felt like. So good morning. I am Steve Ellis, new superintendent of Nash Rocky Mount Schools. I'm excited to be here. This is Joyce Jarrett, Chief Finance Officer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. For both of y'all being new, I don't need to tell you, this format is extremely different from what it has been in the past. We generally would have a meeting either here or out at community college. Both of you get to bring all your board members and anyone else you wish, and we have a pretty good evening, quite frankly, receiving those two budgets, and generally would have a meal together. We would alternate that between the cost of that between the school system and the community college, so the commissioners don't have to pay for it. But I'm kidding with you there also. But anyway, we're doing this morning what we can do. We're in a lot of unknowns, and I'm sure you were able to see our discussion with the community college, and I know y'all have more unknowns than probably anybody else will be dealing with today, simply because of your numerous sources of funding. But
Great.
we're going to do the best we can, and welcome to hear from you this morning.
Well, thank you. So I have been employed by Nash Rocky Mount Schools for about 2 months. In my first 12 days, we were told we were in a pandemic and we closed the school system down. I did not take that personal, but I will say on behalf of our educators, central office folks, Board of Education, they have done a great job providing education for these students in this county. So I did want to give them a shout out, because this is a new normal for us, and you always, as a superintendent, know that students are first, and when things like this happen, you've got to have a plan, and I'm so excited about the group I work with because they have done a great job. So I did want to make sure I recognize them. So today, what I would want to first start out is just to say thank you. Because of your support of our students, we're going to succeed. So what I wanted to do first is just give you a quick overview of some of the things that, well, not things, but projects that we've completed based on your funding from last year. See if I can work this. So you can tell Northern Nash High School, we did the asphalt overlay. Southern Nash drop-off lane. Southern Nash Middle School bleachers in their gym. Red Oak Middle School, the gym floor was refinished. Additional HVAC projects at schools Bienvenue, Williford Elementary, Southern Nash High School, and Southern Nash High School band room, and the dining room, excuse me. Northern Nash High School renovation in the office area was just completed. We replaced carpet in the media center at Southern Nash, Bienvenue, and Inglewood Elementary. place carpet in these classrooms at these following schools. And Spring Oak Elementary had a roof replacement on the 200 building. So with that said, I just want to thank you first for that funding, because these projects were completed because of your generosity. And at this time, I will hand it over to Ms. Jarrett to explain the budget for this year.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning and to share with you how we are going to spend the funds that you have appropriated for 2021. We have added to those appropriations that you have provided to us the estimated or proposed same level for the fines and forfeitures, as well as interest income that we proposed, we expect to receive, and then the fund balance of 92,929 for a reinstatement of the band uniform funding that was stopped or terminated a couple of years ago. So with that, majority of the monies that you have appropriated will be going to salaries, the supplements, and required employer benefits. We are staying flat as the appropriation has stayed flat for another year, but we also have received increases in the insurance as well as the retirement. Those increases we have budgeted in this 2021, it's included in the 2021 budget. We are funding those, although we are flat, by not filling a vacancy in one of our departments, the C&I department. So we are trying to be good stewards of our money, and we are still trying to make sure all of the expenses are paid, even though we have increases. Now, this too will, with the state not passing a 2019-2020 budget, that could be problematic for us, because we don't know when the legislators come in what they will do. But we are planning accordingly and we have included the increases in the 2021 budget regardless. But it could, whatever the legislators decide to do, if it's anything different, that will impact our local budget. The other expenses that we have appropriated from the local budget, I have grouped in categories based on DPI's categories for account coding, if you will. And that's purchase services. Purchase services are basically everything that we purchase: contracts, insurance, contracts, memberships, any types of services that we receive. Supplies and materials. Supplies and materials are tangible goods that we purchase, including instructional services, instructional materials, as well as fuel and oil and things such as that. Majority of the supplies and materials are funded from state. So you see a small dollar, not small dollar amount, but we have more funds appropriated for supplies and materials in state. So this is only a portion that we have allocated. And then the transfer to charter schools. So we're spending the monies, the funds that you've appropriated, and those things that we have also projected according to what I have presented today. Are there any questions?
Any questions at this point from commissioners?
Yeah, looking at the line item here, transfers to charter schools, $1,750,000. I thought there had been some changes on that. So every child, every child that leaves the public school and go to a charter school, a certain amount of money has to go following.
Yes.
But yet they can send them back if they don't like the way a student act, cannot adjust to the way they would
Right.
have them be, send them back to you and they keep the money.
No, they don't.
But
They don't keep the money because we do a calculation during the year. This is not we don't give them the money one time. We do transfers during the year. So we have them, we reconcile the number of students that the charter schools have, that we make sure that we're only paying for those students that are in the charter schools. So we have a way of reconciling to make sure we're not paying for extra.
so that's kind of what, on a monthly basis?
Yes.
Oh,
Mr. Belfield, what you're referring to did happen in years past, but it got changed, the way
Yeah, well,
Mr. Jerry
that's-
presented it.
That's why I brought it up, because
Yeah.
I want to know if it had been a change.
Yeah.
Because
It's
I
been
know
changed
that
for
was
a couple of years, but it was a time
That
in the
was an
past.
issue that I raised in our County Commissioners Association. They take the money, keep it, and send the student on back to the public school.
Other questions, Mr. Belfield?
No, that's it.
Okay. Mr. Outlaw?
I got two real easy questions, and then I want to make two comments. Locally funded classroom teachers, how many have you got in your budget?
This year, we have 6.
6, okay. How many Edgecombe County students have we got this year coming in? 15, 1,600, or?
I'm not really sure, but I can find
Okay,
that out for
okay.
you.
The comment I wanted to make is I watched your board meeting last night, and I wanted to commend the board, the superintendent, the school system on the new logo. And I commend you, not so much for the logo, although I like the logo, but I like the way you established the logo. I think you actually had some kind of contest, and the kids, the students actually submitted logos, so I commend you for that. The second thing I want to commend you for, and I'd like for you briefly to just speak to that, are the creative plans you've got for graduation. I thought that was the most creative thought process and something that I think the kids will forever remember. So if you could just speak to that briefly, and then I would defer back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So what we presented to the board last night was a plan of a virtual type graduation which we'll probably have to start this week, filming 10 or so. It would be a student, 2 guests. We will have the stage set up, and what we'll do is we'll have them come in shifts where they will actually have a graduation. They'll shake the hand, get their diploma like the regular ceremony, and then they exit off. Then what we'll do is on their regularly scheduled graduation day, which would be that Saturday, we would air it at that specific time that they were supposed to have their graduation. So then we would pull all that information together, we would splice all the film, and then they would be able to see their graduation. If they want to have family and friends to see it at their house, that's how we would do it.
And you would have speakers and...
Right, the speakers, everything will be pre-recorded, it'll be a graduation ceremony.
Thought that was very creative.
Yeah.
I don't have a child in the system, but I know that the ones there would appreciate that.
Right.
Thank you.
Is the logo what we see here, Commissioner Outlaw?
It should be
That's
at
the
bottom
logo. I
of
don't
the-
know if that's the actual colors they've settled on, but I think it's actually a blue
Okay, great.
color, isn't it?
Right.
And they did that by the student submitted thing.
Correct.
That was my
We had
understanding.
students to submit logos, and that was chosen.
This is it right here?
Yes, sir. Right, it should be at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I was supposed to say Commissioner Outlaw, but he may have called you too, but I did get a call from the chairman last night asking the board to be kind to the presenters this morning. So
We would
Did you
appreciate
get that call also? or you
No,
just
I didn't get that call, but I was really impressed with the graduation plans, and I was really impressed with the way you went about establishing this logo. It would have been real easy for you to take a bunch of your folks and just get them in a room, say, fix the
Figure it
logo,
out.
and we'll put it on the system, but I appreciate the way you did. I thought it was very creative.
Thank you.
I'm glad to learn that this morning. I didn't know that either.
But I didn't get a call from the chairman.
I'm kidding with you, but he did call and ask that we be kind to y'all this morning, so he's working hard for you as well.
I hope you'll leave thinking we've been kind.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
I did want to just highlight a few challenges I think that
Sure.
the school system is going to have moving forward. And one is one that Ms. Jarrett just spoke of. I want her to talk about this benefit rate increase that possibly will be coming down.
So I mentioned that we included the benefit increase, and the benefits for retirement increased from 19.70 to 21.44%. The medical annual cost increased from $6,306 to $6,647. The increase is included in the budget, and we are not filling a vacancy. The estimated cost of all increases is $185,000. But we are assuming that in the budget, using the vacancy that I spoke of earlier. Now, that is given the legislator does not change those numbers.
Right.
If it does, then we will have to do something otherwise. So that's where we are with that. And we're hoping that nothing changes. But there's so many unknowns right now because the state has not approved a budget for 1920. And we're going in the 11th month of this fiscal year, going into 2021, still not knowing what to expect. So we're hopeful that they don't increase. It would be nice if they reduced, but more than likely that won't happen. So
You
that's where
mentioned-
we are. There's so many unknowns for us financially.
That position, you said it was in the C&I department. Tell us what that is.
That was the position that was formerly held by Dr. Cockrell. Academic, what is it? Chief Academic Officer.
Oh, Chief Academic Officer, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think it's your turn.
So another one is want to highlight, because this has been a concern probably the past 3 or 4 years, is the House Bill 90 classroom teacher phase-in. Well, we are mandated by the state to have K-3 class sizes at certain numbers. So by the state's ruling every year, we have to count so many students in a classroom that cannot go over the 18. So next year, as you can tell, we're going to be mandated to have 18 class size average for K-3. It can be no more than 21, which would be the maximum. So when you do this, that means you could actually have 18 classroom size for K-3, but 4th and 5th grade through high school could be as many as you need, which is bad because we're having high class sizes in the middle schools and in the high schools, and especially 4th and 5th grade. And the problem that we're facing is we're going to run out of room if we're not careful, because schools like Bailey, Benvenue, Nashville, and Coopers, if you have 3 or 4 kindergarten teachers on one hall, you're moving other teachers out. So I just want to bring that up because the next slide will kind of go into what happens when you have these. The state is allotting these positions, however, what it's doing is the enhancement positions is being funded not at the 100% rate anymore. And the issue is we're having to choose between classroom teachers and enhancement positions, art, music, PE. Some of those elective classes in the middle schools and the high schools and elementary schools are now being not funded. So the problem is they're funding, the state is allotting us teachers and making us decide, all right, do you want more teachers or do you want more enhancements? Because last year we had to put, when Ms. Jarrett talked about local positions, we had to put 6 teachers in local because the state only allotted us so many teachers. So we were already in the hole, because I've got a slide right there. We were already in the hole about -18. And this year it's going to be 9. Because once we do the calculations, you can find out the enhancement positions are 1 to 191 ratio, whereas K3 will be 1 to 18. So when you put that in a school building, someone's going to have a lot of kids, and some aren't. The problem is we had to move some of those teachers in local to be able to pay for them. Luckily, the ones we moved, we have been able to reimburse with some of Ms. Jarrett's creative finance, but it's getting to be an issue because you're either going to lose classroom teachers or enhancement positions, or you're just going to have high class sizes. And that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to level it out a little bit. This is my first year with the budget, and I know that we're meeting in departments trying to trim some of this stuff down, but it's going to get down to classroom teachers. And they're hard enough to find, and that's why I just want to make sure we can't put 33 and 34 in some of our middle schools, and that is exactly what's happening right now. So I just want to, next year, it is supposed to be fully funded, but with that ratio, we're still going to fall short. So I just want to bring that up. We're going to figure this out this year with a flat line budget, but in years to come, I have a feeling, because we've increased students in Nash Rocky Mountain schools this year. So when that starts happening, you're going to talk about size, classroom size, but also overcrowding, because you just can't have more than 18 in that classroom. So that is another one of my concerns. And the last one is the obvious, is the COVID-19. We are lucky this year that the state is going to give us funds for technology and some of the online learning applications and some of the support. We're going to get that this year. But we're going to need more than just a one-year deal, because if this is going to be the new normal, we've got to make sure the equity plays into a part of this, because if 80% of our kids can get online, that means 20% can't. So we've got to figure out a way to have a 5-year plan for technology where we're going to be able to support these students, not with a one-time money, but something that we can plan for, because that was our issue this year. I'm just concerned about if this continues, and it is, when the state calendar came out with 5 remote learning days. So we're going to be able to have 5 remote learning days, but if 20% of our kids can't access the computer, what is it for them? It's not a remote learning day. So we've got to figure out a way to put something in the budget for technology next year to be able to sustain some of this new normal for us. And the last piece is school nutrition, bus drivers, and maintenance. We have not stopped feeding students. We are still busing learning packets. We're busing lunches. Maintenance has not slowed down. These essential workers down the line, we need to figure out a way to reward these groups, because I'm telling you, they don't remote learn. They're in the field every day, and I want to put together some sort of a plan that they're going to be able to get some sort of a supplement in years moving forward that's sustainable, because they haven't stopped working. And I just feel like they need to be rewarded. We have some COVID-19 money this year that's going to help some of this, but to sustain it, we won't. And I feel like it's time for us to have that conversation about those workers. And right now, Ms. Jarrett is going to go over the capital outlay requests for next year.
Could I ask you a question about classroom teachers? You gave some numbers for the maximums this year, and you indicated that the state is providing funding, but not enough funding to cover the classroom size that they mandate.
Correct.
And I believe you said they would be paying 100% next year?
Correct.
So next year, if your classroom size is 18, 19, 20, then they're budgeting or allotting you a teacher for each of those classrooms.
But the issue is, you're correct, the issue is they're allowing the enhancement positions to
So
not be
you
fully
might
filled.
lose the
Right,
enhancement
right.
positions.
So what you'll do is you'll get the classroom teacher position fully, but they're not going to fund those enhancements based on those numbers of 1 to 191.
I understand. So here's my question, and I know you're not asking for anything this year to offset that, but have you started looking at your classroom needs and your budgetary needs? So at some point, maybe before next year, we could have some discussion about that, or?
Yes, sir. So what we're doing now is going through every school and every classroom per student and how many is in those classrooms. And then what we're doing is we're trying to allot each school a certain class size for 4th through 12th grade. When we get those numbers, then what you want to try to do is there are some other schools that need support, that need a little additional support. And then what we'll do is we'll try to balance it with the more needy schools with less class size reduction, smaller classes. And then once we get those numbers, we'll be able to figure out, based on some of those calculations, what we're going to do.
I just think the sooner we could have that discussion, the sooner we could start, digesting it and thinking about
Agreed.
how we might be creative in
Okay.
providing what your needs are.
And like I said, I think with Ms. Jarrett being new and me being new, I really want to go through this budget this year to really figure out if there are some things we need to do better, so we can come with a clean, certain things that we really need based on our review of what we have right now.
Yeah, my personal opinion is, and I've always felt this way, I don't know what your needs are,
Right.
but present your needs accurately. Don't inflate your needs. Tell us what you need, and we may not be able to support it, but we can start working together to try to support it.
Right.
So thank you for being open with us on that.
Couple more questions,
I got-
Dr. Ellis. Just a moment. Ms. Belfour, go ahead, then I've got a couple.
You mentioned about the feeding going on now, your bus drivers, how are they all, your bus drivers being used?
The majority
in this,
of,
or are you rotating them and are they being paid?
so the majority of our transportation are dual employed, or we tried to get those who are dual employed to be able to do both. So some might be a teacher assistant and also drive a bus. So in order for us to keep them employed, we allow those TAs to also drive those buses where the food sites were. And then what we did is those who are just part-time bus drivers, some of those were allowed to work with maintenance, some were allowed to help in the schools. So we tried to keep everybody employed, during this crisis. And that's how we did it.
Couple things I had, you mentioned 20% of your students may not have access to internet. Is that a reasonably accurate figure? I would have thought it would have been worse than that, but is that just a number you used, or is that pretty close?
So what we've tried to do is, we've asked principals to give us numbers of what percentage use every day you feel like kids are online, because we have a program called Canvas, and then in the elementary school, there's something else, a Google Classroom, which documents kids online, which also percentage of use. So their numbers, what we did was we asked them, what percentage of kids do you think are online? That was our number, was about 80%. Now, it varied because of certain areas of 60% here, 70% there, but an average of about 20% are not.
Okay, that's a little better than I would have thought it would be. And one more question, I'm sorry. In looking at this classroom sizing and getting it right for the mandate part, and then trying to keep the other in a reasonable amount, which I greatly appreciate you doing that. I know it's very important, because we started last year with some classrooms with 37, 38 kids in some locations. But does the redistricting ever come into play in that as well? Don't we have some needs at some point where we've got to get over into that to try to balance out this equation?
I agree. I think once you have schools that are at 600 and 700 and some at 200, you're going to have to figure out a way to maneuver some of those kids. I agree. Yeah.
Or you mentioned shortage of classrooms.
Right.
We've got a tremendous amount of facilities that we still have open.
Right.
I would think that's got to be in the equation somewhere.
And it would be.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I got a question. You alluded to the fact that it was hard enough to hire teachers. Just for me, why is it hard to hire teachers today?
Because East Carolina the other day graduated about 42 for the state.
42.
So Barton College sent us one of their lists, and there was like 13. So that's for the whole state. It's just getting, we are having more luck with lateral entry teachers, those who have degrees that didn't come into teaching. Those are the ones, I was a lateral entry teacher. I was not certified. I had to go back to get certified. So the certified teachers now are just not out there. And it's tough to compete with Wake County and some of the other districts. So, you have such a small pot that you're trying to gain from. So. Any more?
I've got a question. Do you see for kindergarten on up to 12th grade, what's going on right now with the COVID? Do you see online options for Nash County Public Schools for students?
I do. We are lucky that we have already, I think we purchased Canvas a few years ago where kids are already used to going online with that platform. I think it's going to be the new normal of us being able to have assignments online. I thought about if there was a snow day where I could actually just tell everyone, stay home. Today is a remote learning day. But I would feel more confident in being able to do that if I knew I had that other 20% or part, because the other 20% that are not getting access, we're actually having learning packets. So that's what some of the transportation services are doing now. They're delivering some of those learning packets for those kids. But in a day like a snow day, that couldn't happen.
Remind us of the subject matter we were on now, 'cause we interrupted so many times.
Capital outlay.
Capital outlay, okay. I think you're right. Thank you.
So the capital outlay appropriation for 2021 is $1,699,517. And our maintenance department has provided, as you see on the screen, how they're going to use those funds. And on the second slide, and I will just go through those. General renovations of elementary schools, $230,000. General renovations of middle and high schools, $79,000. HVAC upgrades, $615,000. Roof replacement and repair, $305,000. Paving and gravel, $230,500. Carpet, $70,000. Window coverings, $10,000. Playground safety, $25,000. Safety upgrades, $60,000. Vehicles, 2 maintenance vehicles, $60,000. Capitalized equipment, $15,000. On the second slide, well, I guess I'm not using this correctly. Okay, there. It shows you the work done by school. So that is our presentation. Thank you so much for your support.
Is this number also the same number we had last year?
It is.
It is.
It's a little less.
It's a little less.
actually.
I see it's less on Edgecombe. Of course, that's based on number of students, and
Right, it's the same for
Blanford.
Nash, I'm sorry.
It's the
Yes,
same for
Same
Nash.
for Nash.
Okay.
But a little less for Edgecombe.
Okay.
And that's true also for the operating expense.
and it's strictly based on student count.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. You made the statement that we're rising in, that we've got an increase in numbers, maybe, but Edgecomb's went down. Are the increases on the Nash side?
On the
Do we know?
Edgecombe side,
The increase is coming from the Edgecombe side?
the increase is coming from the Nash side.
Nash side, okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Any other
Other
questions?
questions on the capital outlay from commissioners?
Just when you get an opportunity, just let us know the number of Edgecombe students, okay?
I will,
Thank you.
okay,
Edgecombe and Nash
okay.
at,
I will do that.
Yeah.
Any other
I
questions?
don't have a question on capital outlay, but I was noticing in your budget summary, there on the first page, your fund balance. Do you use your fund balance every fiscal year?
No, we don't. Usually, in the past, the fund balance was for those expenses that had not been incurred. Actually, the purchase orders had not been completed, and the work was not finished until the new fiscal year. So those funds were appropriated into the fund balance into the next year. We have changed that process, and now all the POs the work has to be completed by June 30th. So those will not come into the coming year. This particular fund balance was approved by the Board of Education only to reinstate the band funding. I think about 3 years ago, prior to 3 years ago, band funding was provided to the high schools at $10,000 a year, and they received that on a rotational basis. And that's because the cost of band uniforms is so expensive. They were appropriating $10,000 a year, and as it accumulated to what I understand, $40,000, they would use, each high school would use their monies when they accumulated that much money to purchase bands. So we have to roll it into fund balance in order to accumulate the money for each high school. So that's what that is for.
The statement that you just made about projects needed to be completed before June the 30th, I understand the attempt to do that, but that's going to be very hard sometime, I would think, would it not? And certainly,
That is
we
true.
would want to see you finish those projects.
We want everyone to finish their projects, and that's why we encourage them to not do POs in latter part of May.
Okay.
But there's always opportunity, you have to be flexible when you have.
That's a goal then, I guess.
It's a goal that we are trying to achieve, but we always have to be flexible. And we will be flexible when there are emergencies that have to occur, so that we make sure we have the funds available for the work to be completed.
Right. Well, I think you're on the right track there. In sometimes past, I think the school board thought it was very important to have a large fund balance, which in my eyes, it shouldn't have a large fund balance. I think the Board of Commissioners probably should be the bulk of their fund balance and utilize the money in the year that you get the money to use it in, so we can track it better and not hoard money. That when it becomes very hard for us to keep up with what's going on. When we look and you see you got a large fund balance, so I like your idea on that very much, to attempt to do that. Of course, as we both said, you can't always make that happen, but spending the money earlier in the year would sort of put you in a position at the end of the year where you know what you really had.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Dr. Ellis, I'll turn it over to you to wrap it up, sir.
So in closing, I just want to first thank you for your support. We really need your help in moving Nash Rocky Mount students forward. Thank you for inviting us today. You've been a great audience. Next year, we will definitely have some specifics, but I think this year, since we are new to this, we want to make sure we create a clean budget for us, and look forward to a prosperous relationship and moving our district forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and being new in the time that we're in has got to be extremely difficult, so we'll just work together to get through it, and we would appreciate if you'd let the chairman know we were kind this morning.
I will definitely let him know.
Okay.
Thank you,
sir.
Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
With 90 minutes in, do the ladies want a break, or you want to continue? Take the break, okay. We take a 15-minute recess.
Okay.
Go ahead and get started, Ms. Wood. We'll
So-
call us back to order this time.
The next item on the agenda, I just wanted to bring to the commissioner's attention some fire district tax rate increases that have been requested for the current year. and this is just for informational purposes to be considered as part of our budget ordinance. The Nashville NS Gully is asking for a 3-cent increase from 12 cents to 15 cents. This is to fund the construction of a second fire station within the district. Salem is asking for a 2-cent increase from 12 cents to 14 to help cover the cost of the radio upgrade and for paid staffing. And Castelia is asking for half-cent increase from 11 to 11.5, and this is to help cover the cost of paid staffing. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the commissioners that the fire districts are requesting those increases.
You got any more, I'm surprised about a radio increase at Salem. Any more information on that?
No,
I mean, I thought we had all new radio systems and all of them.
Is that to
We-
help pay us back?
yes, it's to help pay us back.
the loan
It's
back.
to help pay back
Yes.
the loan?
Yeah.
Okay,
is.
okay, I got you. Thank you.
So I just
Diane.
wanted to bring that to your attention, and if you have concerns, just as for the budget presentation, for the ordinance,
Is the 15 cent at Nashville is the max?
that is the maximum.
Okay. Is that, Ms. Wells?
Question in connection with,
Mr. Wellfield? Ms. Wells was speaking, I think. Or one of y'all were you? You were, okay.
Maybe two.
No, it was just
Okay.
one of y'all, I knew started before you started. Go ahead, Sue.
All right, so I know Red Oak's got a pretty new fire station also, and Nashville's also, looks like they're building a second fire station. How much does the town of Nashville chip into their budget as far as personnel and so forth to the NS Gully district?
I am not sure as far as what their portion is.
Because I know, you've got town of Nashville and you've got NS Gully Fire District.
Right.
How that works.
I can request that information.
Sue, I think it's $400,000 I need to be checked on that. I've seen it in the paper several times, but Donna, if you would see what it is,
I will.
I could be off. It's a sizable amount of money, I know.
Okay. That's just getting on up there on the fire tax.
Yeah, it is indeed. 15 cent is. Mr. Bellfield?
oh, I was going to ask about Nashville. Isn't that a two-part fire department, rural and municipality? And if they're asking for this, what is it, 3 cents tax increase, does that cover just the rural area or including the town of Nashville also?
I am not a fire district expert, so we might need a Scott Rogers or,
It includes all of Gully Fire District.
The entire fire district?
Yes.
Even though it's
They don't
two-part?
have a Nashville in town and a outside town.
They
It's
do
all
not, but
good.
Nashville does contribute some money to the fire department. But that fire tax applies to the whole district. If that's your question.
Well, I just wanted to know, I'll be talking about the 3 cents increase of that for
if
the
I
department.
if I
mean,
understand correctly, whatever
They
that
have rural
fire,
and municipal,
right.
and does it cover both?
Yes, sir.
So the fire district would be covered, I think, by the district that's included in the insurance calculation or insurance setup, and so whatever they're asking would include the entire fire district for NS Gully.
I think the bigger problem with the fire districts is down the road. What I see is that they have less people that are willing to step up and volunteer. And so it's pushing a lot of the departments to hiring paid staff. And I think going forward, it's something nobody wants to talk about, but going forward, you're going to see more and more of that. And there's some tough decisions going to have to be made in years to come related to these fire departments.
I agree with that statement, Mr. Outlaw.
Oh, yeah, that's been coming. Training.
I hope it doesn't just end up falling in somebody's lap because they haven't properly planned for it. I'll probably be long gone, but anyway, it's going to happen.
Mr. Chairman, if I can address that. We have 17 fire districts. I think you're going to see two things: more paid people and a consolidation of fire departments. As these fire departments can't get their minimum people, they're going to have to join with other fire departments. And then we're going to have to pay more full-time people, or they're going to have to pay more full-time people.
That's kind of my point. At some point, somebody's going to have to initiate those discussions.
Yeah. Well, people got jobs and they can't get off the job like when you were farming. You could just stop and jump off your tractor and go grab
Nothing to do with the budget.
truck and go.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
But now they got jobs and they can't just walk off the job and
That's right.
run to catch a truck.
There's 18 on the list that you have in here. And what you said, Mr. Lamb, I've seen that happen a couple of times in Halifax County recently where two of them were combined for lack of members in the fire department. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is just to discuss proposed fee changes. We have two areas that are asking for fee changes. The first one is with animal control, and the majority of these changes relate to rabies vaccinations, where now our animal control can provide the rabies vaccination at our location. And so the first change is for the adoption fee for dogs and cats to include the rabies vaccine for a $10 increase. For non-spayed and neutered, it's going to go from $50 to $60, and already spayed and neutered to go from $20 to $30. The next item is to maintain a $30 adoption fee with spay and neuter receipt. So currently, the adoption fee is fully refunded, and they're saying to make sure that we keep $30 of that to maintain the $30 for the adoption fee for spayed and neutered animals. The next item is the reclaim fee to include a rabies shot and a boarding fee. It's a $20 increase. This is going from $50 to $70, and it would include the rabies shot and a boarding and housing fee. The next item is an increase in the boarding fee. It's a $5 increase. It's $5 to $10 overhead for keeping animals. And the final one is to increase or to change the rescue service agency fee to include the cost of a rabies vaccination, a $10 increase. Currently, there's no fee charged at all, and to increase that from $0 to $10. I'm sorry, on the number 2 item with the adoption fee, if the animal has not been spayed or neutered, what currently happens, they would pay the $50, and then once they came back, they would get the $50 back. And what they're requesting is that they only get $30 back. They increase the fee to $60 and only get $30 back. So it's actually, they're getting a fee for the adoption of the dog or cat. The last item is with public utilities, water, sewer. It's to adjust the connection fee for sewer. So the sewer tap is currently at a fixed fee of $2,000, and they want to, they're requesting the change to go to cost plus 10%. The sewer taps are infrequent and highly variable based on the size, location, and depth. In order to more accurately reflect the cost, it's recommended that each request to be handled on a case-by-case basis. And this is to avoid penalizing a customer for a far side tap. The fee change recommended is to request a cost for both configuration and use and average the two as the contractor tap cost. So they are just things that I wanted to bring to the commissioner's attention, that these requests are being proposed for the ordinance.
Do you want questions as you go right then?
You can, that's it. So questions?
The other commissioners have questions on those items? Only thing I was wondering, in the top part, what does that generate?
I'm sorry.
In the top part, animal control, how much revenue is that projected to generate?
The revenue calculation, we haven't processed, but it would actually cover the cost of our rabies vaccine. So I don't think it's particularly looked for an increase except for with the adoption fee of the animals. But since we have the capability to provide the rabies vaccination, that would eliminate an expense for us. It would sort of offset the cost with the rabies vaccine.
I guess I'm wondering, there's got to be, somebody that projected somewhere how much this would bring in, I would think.
Okay.
And my only question is it worth it, once I see that number, to potentially decrease the number of adoptions that we may have there? Just if you would get that
Okay.
information.
And just maybe, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Maybe while Trey is providing that information, he could give us some feel for what, like Wilson and Edgecombe and maybe Franklin are doing, because if these services are here at a cost that's greater than there, then they're subject to go there to adopt, rabies, et cetera.
Okay.
So just a comparison.
Just trying to not do anything that would prevent or slow down the adoptions that we have in the shelter,
Okay.
so I can go home this afternoon.
All right, we'll get back with you on that information with the fees.
Well,
Then-
throughout the day, just to keep us on track, do you prefer we ask as we go, or do you want us to make notes and ask you at the end?
Ask as you go,
As we go?
as we go.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Some people like it different. I just wanted to do it like you like to be done. All right.
Okay, the next item is actually to talk about the general fund, our draft budget summary. And I think we can pull that up on screen. So the first side of the column is our current, what we're recommending right now for the 2021 budget. It's actually $2,555 less than last year's recommended budget, or approved budget. So I wanted to break it down. The first section is with the revenue. So we have operating revenues, transfers from other funds, our reserve funds, and our fund balance appropriation. So currently, we have, in the recommended budget, $89,226,464. And that's actually an increase of revenue over last fiscal year of what we're recommending. And the way that we were able to calculate that with our ad valorem taxes, we're looking at about 2.3% increase over the current year budget, which would be about $1,155,695. So that's part of that increase. The next is our sales tax. The way that we looked at our sales tax, I know the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners had a formula for the calculation with different decreases over different months comparatively, but with Nash County being a little bit different from Wake or Mecklenburg, some of the larger counties, we wanted to take a look at what may be reasonable for what could be possible for Nash County based on our sales. So what we actually did, we looked at last year's collections. So we're looking at fiscal year 19 actual collections. And the reason that we selected that number, and I know it's not difficult to go back and actually look at the actual, but we were on a trend to have an increase of 3% over fiscal year 19. And with the anticipation that hopefully we'll get back on track sometime, hopefully by September or October, and then not knowing what's going to happen with the year, we're projecting that the sales tax that we'll receive will be close to what we collected in fiscal year 19. And that would be about a $300,000 increase over last year's approved budget. Now, where we start losing revenue is with our investment earnings. We're budgeting a decrease in investment earnings of about $575,000. And also in other sales and services, we're very variable places throughout the budget. It's about a decrease of about $300,000 over the current year budget. The next place where we have, so that's with our operating revenue. Then with the transfers from other funds, our transfers from other funds, that was used to help cover debt service. And so last year, we were able to use funds from the courthouse project, Middlesex project, and the radio expansion project. We had about $991,766 available from those three capital projects to use for our debt service. But if you look at our capital reserve, which Ted Cole referred to yesterday, we have some funds that we can use to help with that debt service, and we wanted to use some of that this year. So I've allocated an additional $506,037 from the capital reserve, which would cover the Middlesex Elementary School principal, as well as our limited obligation bond principal. So that, so although it's money transferred in, it's still a decrease from what we had available in last fiscal year of $307,365. The next item is with
Can
our,
I
I'm sorry.
stop you right there just a
Sure.
minute? We're seeing the one sheet we're looking at is what we got in our book.
Yes.
And you're talking about a lot of things that we're not seeing.
I just wanted to talk through the budget, what you're looking at right now. So the detail of actually all these pieces are in the very back with your budget proposed.
Right.
So the detail of what I'm talking through is in that back section.
Well, for instance, you talked about an increase that you put in for sales tax. But I guess that's under transferred from other funds?
That is actually under the operating revenue. So right now.
Sales tax is under operating revenue.
Right. Sales tax, ad valorem tax, investment earnings, sales and services, they're all part of our operating revenue piece.
Right.
And I was trying to explain how we came to the additional revenue for for the 2021 year.
Right.
So with our ad valorem tax, we had, we were still looking at an increase in our estimated value, and hopefully our ad valorem tax is the way we calculate our collections. Our collection rate currently is 98.65%. We always calculate at a 97.5% collection
Is
rate.
there a sheet, I'm sorry, I'm trying
Page.
to get it where I can get, is there a sheet back here that I can follow what you're saying, or is it all in it by department where I won't be able to?
You can go to the very first section. If you go to your budget projections, the very first page,
Uh-huh,
that's where I have the ad valorem tax. The very first
got you.
section is ad valorem tax.
okay.
And the last page of that section, which is page 8, you can see the 1.497 million and where those funds are coming from.
Okay, I'm caught up now. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just wasn't able to follow you.
Sorry about that. I was just trying to give an idea of what we're looking at for revenue. So although we do have increases in our operating revenue, we have other areas compared to last year that are going down. And with the transfers, we don't have as much available for transfers from other funds.
I'm still amazed that you would think at this point, our sales tax may be the same or a little bit more, which is what you said.
Well, I'm not saying that it's going to be, it's more, last year when we did our budget for 1920, we were budgeting at an estimated for what we thought we were going to end fiscal year 19.
Right.
Fiscal year 19 came in higher than the estimated. And so I went back to fiscal year 19 to what we actually collected in fiscal year 19, because we were on track for the current year for an increase of about 3%.
We're on track, correct?
We were
Yeah,
on track.
Right, I got you.
However, our March numbers did come in. We don't know what's going to happen with April, May, and June.
Yep.
Our March numbers did come in.
But
And-
I'm more concerned on what's going to happen in September, October, November, December.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I incorrect? It seems like to me you've always budgeted the sales tax based on what we had that year back for your projections each year. I mean,
Right.
it seems to me like you're doing it like you've always done it.
Well, if I projected so typically what I've done is projected sales tax revenue for the current year based on for the next year based on the projections for the current year.
Yeah.
If I did that, we'd be on track for a 3% increase.
Normally, after 8 or 9 months, she calculates it, the total amount, say for 9 months, divides it by 9 and multiplies it by 12. And so so
Well,
the
that's
current.
what you've been doing.
Based on the current year.
Right.
What she's doing this year is going a year back.
Right. I thought you used a number less than what you just described.
We've always used a number less than what the growth estimate is.
Gotcha.
The
Right.
association gives us a growth estimate. That's statewide. It might be 5%, 6%.
Okay.
We've always used either the current year or the prior year estimates, instead of factoring in any growth whatsoever.
I guess I'm just in the mindset in here this morning that I hope we're real conservative on revenue and understanding the board can certainly make an adjustment at any time, December. If it looks better than it is, I'd rather go back to our people and say we can do more than go back to our people and say we over-projected revenue and we're gonna have to do less. It just seems like an easier route.
Right.
But with that said, I'm gonna quit interrupting you, because I know when I start interrupting you, you get frustrated with me. I understand that, so I'm gonna
No.
try to be quiet.
It's fine, and that's why we're having this budget workshop, so we can talk through this. I mean, this is not a presentation of where
Yeah.
our budget has to be. This is
Right, we're
a
different,
conversation
no
with
doubt about that.
what we have.
Yeah.
I just think we need to be awful cautious and then come back at some point, whether it's December, whether it's March, and say, we underestimated revenue, here's your Christmas present, if that's what we can do.
Yeah, Donna and I always underestimate revenues.
You do.
Just like building permits, this year, we collected in 9.5 months what we budgeted for the whole year. And there's other.
But I see why that is,
Yeah,
things are
because
getting
we
better. It ain't
had
because
growth,
of no estimate.
as you pointed out, the new construction. But the ad valorem taxes, even though we collected 98.85% last year, we're budgeting
97.5%.
97.5, which is probably another
Million.
$700,000.
$50,000.
Yeah. So, but sales tax, you're right, sales tax is the one that we, it's a shot in the dark this year.
Yeah.
That's why we're not.
Well, let's shoot where the little bit of light is, rather than in the
Yeah.
dark, maybe.
Oh, well, we are.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason we reduced the fund balance appropriated. You can see instead of 4.3 million, we're at 3.9 million. We're trying to be as conservative as possible. The sales tax, though, we think we're going to see a reduction in the coming months, but apparently people are still buying online with companies that have a presence in North Carolina, therefore they have to collect that sales tax. If March is any indication, we're going to do okay. Now, I agree, April, May, June, we don't know. We just don't know. But we've got to budget something, and so we've gone back to the prior year numbers and hope. Hope,
I understand.
yeah.
And I've talked to other counties, and locally, and there's just, nobody really knows how to budget at this point for sales tax. So there are a variation of ways that people are trying to look at that number.
Are you at a stopping point where I won't bother you if I stop you right now?
Sure.
Okay, I think we're right at 11 o'clock, and
Okay.
Mr. Lamb needs to do his thing. And when we come back, I promise you not to interrupt you as much. And what we're doing is doing our daily update on the virus at this time at 11 o'clock, and we'll turn it back over to Mr. Lamb. I guess you got about a minute or two, Mr. Lamb.
Yes, sir. Got it. 1 minute. Always make sure Mr. Hill's on.
He'll be there.
Yep. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our daily COVID-19 response briefing. It's Tuesday, May the 5th, 2020. At this time, as usual, we will, well, first let me say we are once again simulcasting from the Commissioners' budget meeting. And this is also being shown on YouTube in addition to using the Teams format. At this time, we'll hear from Bill Hill, our Health Director, on the latest information.
Good morning. Hope all are doing well. I reported, as you know, 3 new cases over Sunday night into Monday morning. And last night, I have 2 more new cases that are reported in this morning, overnight. So these 2 new cases today brings us to 105 as a cumulative number. We're still showing a reduction here of 6 in the hospital, still showing 3 deaths. Of the 2 this morning, 1 male, 1 female, not related in any way, contacts or otherwise. One particular individual, the male, does have some fairly acute underlying and coexisting health issues, and we have a number of contacts in that household to deal with also. The female, I don't have as much information on at this time, but I believe the person is of Hispanic origin. I have no other reports to give at this time, but be glad to try to respond to any questions or concerns anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any questions for Bill Hill? If not, we'll hear from Brent Fisher and Emergency Management.
Good morning, everyone. Brent Fisher, Nash County Emergency Management Assistant Director. Just have a few things to share this morning, and let me pull up my PowerPoint slides. So for call volume over the last 24 hours, 911 had 184 calls for service and EMS at 57 calls for service. On our local, state, and federal initiatives, we got a couple of new things I wanted to bring up on this call. Again, Hurricane Preparedness Week, May 3rd through the 9th. So today's topic is high winds and assemble your disaster supplies. In a disaster supply kit, where we're talking about 1 gallon of water per person, non-perishable food items, and I'll be sharing some information about that, everything that you need to have in your supply kit. I've sent out an email this morning, but I'll also be adding it to this chat if anybody needs any information on that. But that is the topic for today. There is a grant opportunity by the National Council on Aging COVID-19 Community Response Fund, which was created to raise and distribute funds to hard-hit community-based organizations that are directly serving older adults during the pandemic. I have shared that with the Senior Center and also with the City of Rocky Mount. So there's some information, and I've also attached that information to the chat. So if anybody needs to see that, who's eligible and who's not eligible to apply for that grant. Also, I've got attached a food banks updated list that Ashley Winstead at the Aging Center and Liz Lord at the Harrison Family YMCA has been working on as we deal with food banks. And again, there's a big push to continue to donate to our food banks because they are being used during this pandemic. I don't know if Ashley has a mic, if she wants to say anything about that, or if Liz joined this morning, but I do appreciate their hard work in obtaining those food banks, those locations. Also, I think Mary Scott Anderson is on, and if she has a 211 update on some information that she's been collecting.
Good morning. I have access on 211 to create reports. I know in Brent's report, I believe it was on Friday, he included numbers for the state of North Carolina, but I have drilled down to Nash County specifically. And so I took the same dates he had, beginning March 18th through May 3rd. Nash County had a total of 330 calls to 211. The number one top request was food. 65 calls were for food. Number two was housing and shelter, had 48 calls, and 31 of those were for rent specifically. The third one is other. So I'm guessing a lot of that other is COVID-19 related. And then number four was disaster. And that includes food and water, housing and shelter, among other things, probably related to COVID-19 as well. Some other top ones were information and referral for COVID-19, utilities assistance. So you can see the report here. It goes into details of each of those categories.
Thank you. The next thing that I had was the media briefing. There will be a media briefing today with the governor at 5 p.m. And again, you can watch that at this link or on the UNC public television channel. And I did want to share. Mr. Lamb, can you see the Word document for the food banks? Yes. Okay. I just wanted to share with everyone the food bank list that Ashley and Liz have been working on. Again, I've attached this to the chat, so everybody should have that as well. A Touch of the Father's Love, the Life Christian Center, the Family Food Bank in Bailey, Ripple Effects, Salvation Army, Middlesex Church of God, St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church, United Community Ministries, the Reach Center, Ebenezer Missionary Baptist Church, Greater Joy Baptist Church, and there's some closures there and some additional resources. So there's a lot of good things going on in our communities to help support those in need during this pandemic. So I appreciate all the efforts there, and I think that's all I've got to report unless there's any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Brent Fisher or Mary Scott? If not, we'll hear from Chief Deputy Brandon Medina with the Nash County Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, Brandon Medina, Chief Deputy, Nash County Sheriff's Office. We have about 70 calls for service, nothing out of the ordinary during any of those calls. We did have about 44 individuals come to the front door of the courthouse. 146 phone calls were fielded at the Sheriff's Office with 26 walk-ins. Did want to give some data that I hadn't given in the last couple of days regarding our lunches. As you know, the Sheriff's Office is partnering with Bailey Elementary, Southern Nash High School, Spring Hope, Red Oak Middle, and Nash Central Middle. Yesterday, we assisted with 1,546 meals. Friday, with those same schools, about the same average, 1,517 meals. And April 30th, slight decrease, 1,354 meals served. That's pretty much it for the Sheriff's Office. I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions? If not, Trillium will be back with us tomorrow. And this time we'll hear from any departments that have anything to share. At this time, then, we will hear from any community partners that have any information for us. Well, be safe, take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your parents and grandparents. See you tomorrow, 11 o'clock.
Okay, well, if you continue, Ms. Wood.
Okay, as I indicated, the page that we have, the summary page, was on the screen, and then the commissioners have in the back the detail of where I'm pulling this information from, and it's actually from the far right column and under the 2021 recommended, compared to the 2020 original budget. Are there any questions on the transfers
Any questions
from
from
other
commissioners?
funds?
I was looking at the outside agency funding allocation. I was looking at notes down there, but I didn't see anything. My sister's house, we're not proposing anything for them,
Right.
according to this. They requested 10,000, we give them nothing. I mean, it's nothing being put in the budget.
Phil, I don't think we're at that item quite yet.
It's
I
the
was just
second-
going to, if it's okay, I'd like to
It's
just go
the
through the
second page.
summary first, on
This-
the draft summary.
Yeah, she's still on the first, though.
It's still on the first page.
Right.
yeah.
I was just walking through where we are on revenue and currently how we have the recommended budget balanced. And I started with the revenue piece of it, which includes the operating revenue, the transfers from other funds for debt service. They're the two pieces that I've talked about so far.
She's on the right side of the first page, Mr. Bellfield.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Okay. So the next piece is from the reserve funds. So within the reserve funds, we have two pieces. We have our public educational government reserves. I've allocated, and if you want to see this, if you look at the budget projection, it's on page 8. I have 30,000 allocated from the public education reserves, and that's actually, once we get to the capital, that area has requested $30,000. And so I've pulled 30,000 out of their reserves to go towards their capital once we get to that point. The next piece of the reserves is within the health department, and that's specific funding available from revenue earned that must be used for health programs. And it's for activity that generated that revenue. And those numbers are provided by the health department as they prepare their budget and with the different programs that they have and what's available from their reserves to use. This year, they had, the calculation was for $915,607 compared to last year for $908,399 that they could use from those funds. So the total reserves last year from the public education government program, they requested a little over $50,000 for their capital, and this year it's a little bit less, so our reserve available funds went down about $12,000. The next piece that's part of our revenue section is the fund balance appropriation. So what we have budgeted this year with capital, we've budgeted $906,050, and again, once we get to the expenditures and we talk more about capital, you'll see where our numbers are coming from. Last year, we had budgeted in our original budget, in the current fiscal year, we had $1,357,035. So our capital appropriation has actually decreased from last year, just not knowing what's going to happen and trying to make sure that we can, we'll hopefully be able to fund those during the current year. And then with our fund balance appropriation, just to help us out with the balancing, we budgeted the same amount, $3 million, from just the regular fund balance appropriation. We budgeted that number in 2020 budget, and we're recommending the same amount for the 2021 budget. But the decrease is primarily from our capital, what we're requesting in capital.
If I may, just for your information, the health reserves are Medicaid, right?
That's correct.
Medicaid money that comes in, we have to account for it, but we can't appropriate it. So that's Medicaid dollars that have come in. And as she said, we have cut the capital items about $450,000. And again, in the back here, you'll see these 8 pages. These 8 pages are our total revenue stream. So I would encourage you to go through it and look at where we're getting a lot of, most of our money. And again, I think other than sales tax, I think we've been very conservative. Sales tax, again, we just don't know. But I would encourage you to look at those 8 pages, and that will show you our revenue stream.
Okay.
Okay. The next section of the summary, I wanted to talk about the operating expense. So we actually are budgeting an additional $710,469 in operating expense over the current year budget. But what that operating expense, let me just tell you what that doesn't include. With requested salaries, there's no cost of living, no merit, no new positions, and no position reclassifications. So our current available positions, our salary, there are no increases considered in the current operating budget. But where we did have to adjust the budget was with retirement rate. We have mandated rates by the North Carolina State Treasurer's Office with retirement system. For our general employees, the retirement rate is increasing from 9% to 10.2%, and for law enforcement officers, 9.7% to 10.84%. That was an increase of about $374,000. Then with our health insurance, we're with the North Carolina State Health Insurance for our active employees. We're estimating an increase of about 2.7% over the current year budget. And then with our retirees that we have covered with insurance, they're on the market plan. And we also have a number of retirees that are being added to our retirement, to our retiree insurance. So we're looking at an increase of about $350,000. So that's for with salaries and benefits as part of our operating expense. That's where those increases come from. In addition, with our operating budget, we have inducement agreements that we're having to increase based on the calculation about $500,000 over the current year original budget.
If I may, just to explain the local government retirement system, every employee puts 6% of their pay automatically goes to their retirement account. And the state pretty much balances actuarially the retirement accounts by increasing the employer share. So the employee puts in 6%, the employer puts in either 10.2 next year or 10.84. And if you don't reach retirement eligibility, you can pull that money out. Just the 6% you put in, the rest of it that the employer puts in stays in the account.
And who benefit from that?
All the other retirees.
Everybody else is left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Including you, Mr. Belfield.
So what?
Including you, sir.
Well, that still doesn't make it right, just because it includes me.
so as part of the operating expense, to some of the notable offsets that I wanted to talk about that we did pretty much across the board with our departments, we were able to reduce what we calculate for our fuel cost estimates just because of the fuel cost actually going down right now, and that's for our county-owned vehicles. We also reduced travel and training within departments, and some uniform costs have actually decreased. So we're trying to look ahead and see where we could possibly make some cuts, or just anticipating or not knowing what's going to happen, projecting out into 2021. The other item within operating expense, as Mr. Belfield talked about, was just referring to our outside agency allocations. So if you just flip over to the next page of the summary, just want to talk about a couple of things that we have currently in our recommended.
Yeah, before we do that, y'all probably figured this out, but after the 8 pages of revenues, you see a yellow sheet, and then there's 37 pages. That's the expenditures in the proposed budget. And I urge you to go through that and when you can, and if you have any questions, let us know.
And that's given by the department.
That's given by
Yeah.
department, line by line for each department. So you can see what the request was and then where we currently are with the recommended.
Now, what sheet are you working off of?
The page right after the summary budget, I just wanted to, there's a page in there that refers to a 5-year agency-funded
Right.
history. I just wanted to talk about outside agencies.
Will the screen catch up with you?
I don't believe I have that one available on the screen.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
So with our outside agencies, my Tri-County Industries, they requested $42,000. We have $42,000 in the recommended budget. My sister's house, they requested $10,000. Currently, we have a receivable from a grant from my sister's house where they still owe us funds for the current year. So we did not budget anything for next fiscal year in the budget because of that receivable that we have from them for a grant that we have outstanding.
And do you recall the amount of that debt they owe the county?
It's around $36,000, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
It goes back to May of 2019.
Right.
The next one is Nash Arts Council. We have budgeted, they requested $30,000, recommended funding for $30,000. One thing that we have in our outside agencies that we put in place in the current year, there were 2 things. One was that we required an audit for funds over $25,000 that the county provided. With the availability for the county manager and the finance director to override that requirement. But we do have from Nash Arts Council a 990 that they have prepared by their CPA. So we put in the $30,000 as they requested. The next is with the Boys and Girls Club. They requested $30,000. What we have in the recommended budget is $12,500. If the board recalls, back in fiscal year 17-18, the board approved an additional funding of $25,000 that year, and that was to be used for the 21st Century ARC grant, ARC implementation in the southern end of the county. And it was the understanding that once they put that in place, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years after that, the Boys and Girls Club would pay that money back through a decrease in the allocation for that current fiscal year. So what the county manager and I have recommended is, instead of the full $25,000 being refunded in the current year, to have refunded the $12,500 or half of that allocation with the next year's allocation to refund back the additional $12,500, to be considered, of course, during next year's budget. The next item is United Community Ministries. They requested $30,000. We've recommended $30,000. Downey's Partnership requested $10,000. We've recommended $10,000. Spalding Center requested $40,000. We recommended $24,000. Again, that's based on two criteria that we had in our outside agency funding recommendation. One, Spalding Center doesn't receive an audit. We didn't receive their 990. And the other issue is the majority of their funding, over half of their funding comes from Nash County. And so in order to eliminate that criteria, we thought we wanted to allocate them some funds so it falls under the 25,000, and also it's not half of their agency's expenditures for the year. So we're recommending 24,000.
So, make sure I understood that. I remember us placing the limit of 25,000 without an audit, and we
Right.
did that due to a couple of issues we've had in the past.
Right.
So what you've done, because you don't have an audit from the Spalding Center, is put it below the threshold
That's correct.
to the maximum that you can,
Right.
with the current rule that we adopted.
That's correct.
Okay, I got you.
I don't think it's a formally adopted rule. I think it's something that,
It's a guideline.
yeah, a guideline.
Right.
The other guideline that we put in place is that we recommended that the county's doesn't fund over half of the agency's expenditures.
Right.
The expenditures for the Spalding Center were $80,000, or right at $79,000, and they're requesting $40,000 from the county. So in order to encourage them to seek additional funding sources and not rely completely on the county, that was another recommendation for bringing it to 24,000.
Gotcha. Okay.
The next item is with Christian Fellowship. They requested $6,860. The recommendation is $6,860. Highway 495-17 requested $14,000. We're recommending $14,000. Hope Initiative requested $10,000. We're recommending $10,000. Peacemakers requested $14,000. We're recommending $10,000, which is the same amount as the current year. And then a need requested $5,000, and the county is not recommending any additional funding or new outside agency funding for the year.
You know, and again, these are recommendations. The board is free to modify these numbers. We feel like the board needs to initiate new spending, like in the need case, rather than staff recommending it. So we did get a request from them, but we didn't feel we should make that decision to increase the number of agencies or start a new funding stream for an agency.
Any comments, questions from commissioners on those items? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The next item I just wanted to talk about is with Braswell Library. In the current approved budget, the commissioners approved a 3% increase based on the allocation if all the funding partners agreed to the 3%. So we budgeted $864,614 in the 1920 approved budget. With the reallocation there for Rocky Mount, Edgecombe, and Nash, and they're also asking, in the current year, they're asking for a 3%, which would actually bring the appropriation or the request, which brought the request down to $859,061 for fiscal year 2021. So based on their requested amount, we recommended their requested amount for the current fiscal year.
And they have, this has come up in the past few years about their formula was based on a 2004 census, and they have updated their formula, and we're paying about 50% now.
So I think what I heard you say is they asked for a 3%.
They did.
We're given the 3%.
No, we changed our allocation for the current year because not every funding agency provided the 3%.
Okay.
So actually, our actual was reduced to $850,000 for the current fiscal year, from
Right.
$864,000 to $850,000.
Right. In the current year, Rocky Mount did not give, they cut theirs between what they had appropriated and what had been asked. They came to the middle, and therefore we made a downward adjustment according to y'all's instructions at budget time last year.
So this year,
We've got a new formula.
you got a new formula, but you are incorporating the 3% ask.
They are asking
If
for it.
the other agencies do it, if we still got that same stipulation in there.
Okay.
Yes.
No, that's a question, not a statement. So that's what we're doing?
Yes, yes. We've got a formula now that says we're going to pay 50%. The city of Rocky Mount's, I think, 37%, and Edgecombe County is 13%. So if they don't all do the same, we will readjust it according to the formula, so that we're not paying more than 50%.
Okay, it gets the same results. So I was just asking in a different way, but it's the same number. I got you.
What's the need of the formula if you're not gonna abide by them? You need to throw them out the window.
No, we're gonna abide by it. That's what he said.
Well, we're saying if the others don't, we are. So, then we don't need, we just do what we can do. We don't need a formula if you're not gonna abide by it.
Well, we are abiding by it, by the way we're doing it. We're gonna give our 50% of what they give. The formula, we don't have to say if they don't, we're not. We're gonna use the formula.
Well,
Which is the same results.
So
I thought you just stated if they don't
Yeah.
live up to it, then we adjust down according to what, based on what they did.
Right. If the other two partners in total cut the appropriation by 10%, I'm sorry, by $10,000, and that's 50% of the formula, then we would cut our appropriation by $10,000.
We wouldn't do it, the formula would, is the way you need to say it.
Right.
So Mr. Bellfield understand the importance of the formula.
We've now got an updated formula that everybody, I believe, will abide by this year. Last year, they transitioned from one formula to another. Rocky Mount had already put their amount in based on the old formula. We had appropriated based on the new formula, so we adjusted ours, and so did Edgecombe, to be consistent with what, in the end, Rocky Mount agreed to pay, which was half between the old formula and the new formula.
Which they were going by the old formula.
In their budget process, they went by the old formula. The other two entities went by the new formula.
Have any indication that they're gonna go by the new formula this year?
Yes.
Both?
Yes. We all know the new formula now. And we all know to use it. We've had
And you all have
meetings.
representation on this board anyway.
We've had meetings
Right.
and finance meetings, and the city was represented, and Edgecombe was represented, and we were represented. Donna and I have gone to those meetings.
Well, as long as you stick to the formula, it takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's right.
The lowest paying person that year is gonna control the funding.
Yeah. And I believe everyone will go with the formula this year.
Can you provide the formula just so we'll have it for information?
I can.
Sure. It's a two-part formula. It's based on population and
Sales tax value.
people that have library cards.
Right.
And where they're from.
Okay.
Or the tax value is on Gateway. Or
Yeah,
was on
yeah.
Gateway. I got it.
But we can get that for you.
Okay, and then the next item, if you just flip back to the summary, the debt service, as Ted Cole was referring to yesterday, our debt service for the fiscal year 2021 is actually decreasing from our debt service from 1920 by 292,000.
Where's that?
It's on the summary page.
She's back to the same page. She likes that first page.
Yeah. That's my guide.
Yeah. I've got your routine down pat now, just
I
all
see
to
it.
start with.
Okay.
I got you.
So we have a decrease in our debt service, and then the last item is with the capital request. But let me just go back to operating expenses. Are there any comments or questions or concerns about where we are right now?
Nope.
Okay.
Apparently not.
Okay, and then the last item that I have,
On the debt service, we all need to understand that's a temporary decrease.
that is a temporary decrease.
It
That
won't
is
happen
correct.
again.
It won't with the new borrowing.
That's correct.
For next
It may
year.
happen one more time, but that's
Yeah,
it.
one more time maybe.
Right, possibly.
What did we pay off? Or why did it come down?
It's fixed principal plus interest. So every time you pay principal, it reduces the interest. Some of the loans are.
The last item that I have that I want to talk about with our expenditures are what we're recommending for the capital for current fiscal year. So if you'll go to the section that says CIP in your budget
Right.
book,
Just what?
should have a tab on it that says CIP.
The next to last tab.
Boy, stayed up late making these tabs,
Not
didn't
smeared.
Yeah, they understood. The one with the yellow lines through it.
I think we've all got it if you want to.
Okay, so what I want to talk about is what you have in the first column is the requested, what the departments originally requested in the budget. And what we want to do is have a 5-year plan. And keep in mind, this is a plan, what we're looking, so the years from 22 to 25 is what projects that we're looking at and things that our departments have requested in future years. The year that we really want to focus on is the 2021 year because that will be part of our budget. And just what we've done a little bit differently this year in the budget is instead of putting the capital within the departments where we usually put the capital request, I've actually lumped those all in the same line item. We'll transfer the dollar amount that the commissioners approve for our capital funding based on the request and the recommendations. That will be transferred to a capital reserve fund. And once the departments, and after the budget's approved, once the departments have received their quotes and send the information to finance, we'll move that money back into their department so they'll be able to encumber the funds and prepare a purchase order and purchase the item that they're requesting. So it's a little bit different. So if you look at the budget compared to last year, you may see capital in a budget from last year and you wouldn't see it this year, but that's where this detail is so important. So the first item that we have for fiscal year 2021 that we are recommending, the sheriff's office elevator, that's in the current year budget as Jonathan Boone has referred to, but that project has been put off because we have actually been focusing on some other things within the detention center. So we're recommending that again for fiscal year 2021. The original request was $125,000. They went back and received some additional quotes, and it's $140,000 that they need to prepare the elevator. You turn over to the next page.
As you go through this, the ones that were requested, and then I see the majority of them were not funded, do they roll into a later year or some of them go away?
We've rolled them into a later year.
Rolled
primarily.
everything into a later year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And what I tried to identify, if they're, were recommended for a later year, I did a little bit of highlight, little dots. So it would.
I see that now. Okay.
Just to let you know, one large item, the boiler replacement on the first page, that was requested for the current fiscal year. They were requesting $385,000. We moved that to fiscal year 2022. The boiler is not an immediate need to be replaced, but just if it goes, that will have to be replaced.
Yeah, this was an item that was requested for the current year that we delayed to next year. Now we're delaying it from next year to the following year. If we have a catastrophic boiler issue, it could be down you know this better than anybody, several weeks. I'm not sure exactly how long, but that was,
It would be potentially more than several weeks. They
Yeah.
don't sit on a shelf.
yeah, exactly. So I just want y'all to be aware of
And
that.
this year is 21 years old.
That's right.
We need to get it sooner or later.
So what are you spending to maintain it?
Patching it, if they have any,
Do you know what you are spending on it?
It's not a large sum. It's either boiler pretty much works or it don't work, but when it happens, it happens.
right.
Oh,
I just wanted y'all to be aware that is something that, as you say, is 21 years old and has been recommended by maintenance facilities for several years. And it's a big number, and with the uncertainty of the budget and the revenues, we just, like a lot of things, we delayed it at least 1 year.
And you might, next year, if it's still a tough year, you may want to look at purchasing the boiler, sitting it on a shelf.
Right,
And have it there, then you don't have the big delay.
yeah.
Potentially. You might just want to see what the actual cost of the boiler is, because
When you say boiler, that's just heat, right? Not AC? Boiler is just heat?
well, you got to have it for both in this building because you got some reheat involved in this building.
So if it goes down in August and it's 95 degrees, or in the wintertime when it's 10, it's all out, is that right?
No, you will still have heating. You will still have cooling, but you won't have heating, but you potentially would have more, I hate to even say it, but humidity in the building, similar to what we had at the action of last year.
Right.
I hate to make that public, but that's what would happen.
Yeah, what we can do is, based on revenues in the first few months of the new year, that's something we can discuss with Jonathan and perhaps bring back to the board.
Sure.
If it goes out and you have to have another shutdown is what I was thinking about, you know.
You're gonna struggle. Yep. In the wintertime.
The next item on page 2 is with our MIS department. She had, our director, our IT director, had several projects listed, and she identified the top items that she felt were needed, specifically the desktop computer replacement, network switch replacement, and network file and server audit software. If you need more information on how that works, we may have to have our IT director to explain those to you.
Is she reasonably satisfied with what you've done here?
She is. She made her recommendations,
Okay.
what were her top choices or what she felt were needed
Right.
to make sure that we had the security in place.
And the first item is something we do every year. We have a schedule of replacing computers. And she's got it by department, and so that's something we do every year.
So you're not delaying anything that would compromise security of the system?
No. As far as I understand, she actually did her top choices, and the ones that she selected would make sure that our security is maintained.
Okay.
The next item is the one that I referred to with the public education grant, the $30,000 for the replacement of 4 server carousels. The item under that is with our planning inspections to do the land development plan, the $125,000. We want to go ahead and put that as part of our CIP, since it's a large expenditure. The item underneath is with the farmers market security cameras. We're looking at around $12,000 with cooperative extension.
You had some estimates on, yeah, you did. I remember you sent them to me. I appreciate you leaving that in there.
The next item is within the sheriff's office. We're recommending 3 vehicles, and that would include the upfit. That's the same amount of vehicles that we provided in the current fiscal year for the sheriff's office. The next item that's included in the recommended is within emergency communications. That's a generator for the Whitakers paging site. The next item under EMS is for 2 ambulances.
I want to go back before you get too far.
Sure.
Under the sheriff, I see the routine of where you're rolling it, but like vehicles, I don't see any of your little dotted hashes where you move that to a future year. So does that mean that's gone away or not?
No, that was my mistake. I left those off. So, no, I don't believe they're gone away.
Okay, no, I know
I
they're
didn't,
not
I did
gone
not
away.
mean to leave those off.
This year, we, through our budget, we provided for 3 vehicles, and he used federal asset forfeiture money to buy the additional
Yep.
vehicles. So,
I was just looking at all the items, I didn't see them show back up, but that, you just need to make a correction
I
there.
do.
Don. Okay.
and if I could, the generator for the Whitaker's site, they have real issues up in that part of the county getting a signal. And so this is something that they feel like will help them with that.
Okay,
When power goes out, yeah.
The next item that I have is with animal control. They're requesting the shelter management software for $15,000. Under the health department, currently, they don't have any vehicles within the health department. They drive their own vehicles, and so we're recommending if we can purchase surplus vehicles, maybe 2 per year. And so this year, we're looking at a surplus of 2 vehicles, which would be about $20,000.
They are used by the health department, I guess that's used in the environmental services part.
Well, we have environmental services, but they are also, I believe, some nurses that
Okay.
move between the different health departments, and they use their own vehicles. And
Is
then,
that a trend, Mr. Lamb, you're trying to get away from that, or what's going on there? Or was it just where Mr. Boone showed you could get vehicles pretty inexpensively?
Right. We're talking about getting 2 used vehicles. It'll cut down on the privately owned vehicle, 58 cents per mile.
Right.
And
Okay.
you're going to still have a hybrid. You're going to still have some people driving their own vehicles, but we'll have a county vehicle that department can utilize.
I know y'all bought like many like Ford Explorers and a few things like that when he first came to work that I thought were extremely reasonably priced. Have they held up well? And they come with low mileage anyway, don't they? It looks like, I mean, have we had much trouble with them? What you looking at?
we
I
have
was
not,
looking at Mr. Belfield. He's got an Explorer. His is held up pretty well.
Oh, okay, okay.
we haven't had trouble with our Explorers. We did purchase one vehicle that had some issues, but it wasn't an Explorer. So our Explorers have held up very well that we received from surplus.
Okay.
Is that something that you have mentioned to, excuse me, the community college? For example, I know they asked for a truck this morning. That was one of their requests.
Yeah.
And
we-
it's 10 or something like that.
Yeah, Jonathan, since he's come on board, has done a real good job with identifying used vehicles through state surplus, federal surplus, I guess. So we'll talk to
Could you just
them.
make Ms. Covington aware of that opportunity?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good point.
And then the next item that we have is with our park maintenance. They're requesting a bunker rake for Miracle Park, and then also a gator for Miracle Park. And that's how we come to our $936,050 for the recommended budget for the general fund.
So you can buy that gator for $7,800.
That is what our Parks Maintenance Department gave us.
Seems really cheap.
You want to buy 2 of them, you'll pay for one of them, Mr. Outlaw?
I'd like to have one for that price.
I agree.
You might want to check that cost.
Okay.
That's pretty low for one of those vehicles.
Yeah, as you can see, as we discussed before, the overall capital outlay is down very much from last year. Given the times, we just really felt like we should not budget it up front, but as we've talked about certain items that if the economy gets better and revenues come in as hoped, we can revisit some of these items.
Down 3.4 million. Which means we really just kicked those cans down the road somewhere else, it looks like.
Yep.
But I doubt any of them completely went away, did they, Ms. Wood?
Sorry?
I said, I doubt many of them completely went away, did they?
No,
just got
they
moved
really-
over?
they-
Some of them some of them were inflated, but
I got you.
But I'll make adjustments on the final to make sure that what was out there that I missed, I actually saw another department where I missed one.
I see one more there, but you can get that squared.
I'll make sure I get that fixed.
Okay.
So that's where we are. And then just, if you look underneath, I put, the airport didn't request any capital for the current year. Nash Community College, they requested $415,000 instead of $470,000 as we provided in prior year, or in the current year. And Nash Rocky Mount School, I budgeted the same amount that they have, that they've received.
Is that what
in
they
prior years.
requested this morning?
yes.
It is,
Okay, so both community college and the schools got what they requested
right.
in
Well,
capital? Okay.
That's correct. And what I currently have in the recommended, and again, this is just conversation, but what we put in the recommended right now, so the additional $55,000 that they had in capital, I moved that to operating. So where they were asking for $100,000 in operating, they have an additional $55,000. So it wouldn't, so what the county is recommending to provide them is a flat amount that we gave them last year. No, it doesn't include the city high, the $21,000 that was used for city high, but it's the flat amount. So operationally, they would have an increase where we're taking that money from there. They wanted to use differently. But again, hopefully with the way that, hopefully everything will pick back up, we'll be able to come back in October. And take a look, and our revenue will be more than what we were expecting, and our agencies that are requesting more, our departments that are requesting more, will be able to hopefully put some things back in place.
Next. You can do that.
There's not. The next section is just for the commissioners to be able to review what we have, the detail of what I went through. And if you want to take a look at it, and we can get back together, and let me know if you have any questions or concerns. But I provided that information just so each commissioner could have the detail of where we started and where we are right now and are recommended.
So to summarize those, that it's 10 million for the detention facility, 20 million for the new elementary school, 1.25 million for Cloudwise Phase 3, some courthouse additional improvements, 229, and 91 for 911.
$31,570,000 worth.
Of new spending.
New spending.
But
which is
the 10 and the 20 will be financed and will be offset by the public school, 10 million from the public school fund.
Still, 31 million is 10% more than the unrestricted fund balance at the current time.
That's correct.
Mr. Belfield?
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you said that in this year's budget, that funding for the new North Nash Elementary School wouldn't be in it.
We're just showing you what capital projects are on the horizon over the next year or two.
Yeah, 2021, right?
Ye-
Through 25.
Right. We stuck that Northern Nash Field House that Chairman Lamb mentioned at a recent meeting in there the second year, but what we're recommending, we're really not recommending it. Y'all have already committed to the 10 million and the 20 million. Again, the 20 million is offset by the 10 million from the state, which they offset with the lottery funds. But the CloudWise, the 1.25 million for CloudWise is what the intent is as we go forward.
And hopefully that will be funded by the GREAT grant.
And we still have this courthouse expansion, some, that money's still in the.
We just budgeted some of that we did the chiller, and we are looking at some updates for maybe updates with handicap accessibility, and then the interior painting.
Right. And then on water sewer fund, which is not the general fund, it's a separate enterprise fund. You want to talk about these two items, solid waste and.
Do you all want to pause for lunch now and then finish up when we get through? Or how much longer we got, or what is it?
I think-
This is actually it. After we talk about the capital, but more discussion from the commissioners. So our presentation, this is what we have prepared for the presentation, and then just discussion from the commissioners on the direction from here, on what the commissioners want to do with what we've presented, and how we can move forward with what we plan on recommending in the June meeting.
Y'all may want to discuss any recommendation that we've made, or you may want to discuss the salaries increases, that sort of thing.
Ms. Wood, where would be the best point to break for lunch? I do think we'd have some discussion when you get through. Do you want to finish, then do lunch, and then have discussion, or do you want to break now?
Well, let me just, there's two more items in capital
Okay.
that the county
We'll
manager
finish
wanted
up
me to
then.
discuss with our enterprise funds.
Okay.
And then as far as the presentation of what we have in our recommended budget, the next step and the next item on the agenda is just commissioner discussion about what we have presented. So-
What I hope we could do then is come offline, have lunch, and then come back online and have the discussion.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
The first item is with our water and sewer department. They're requesting a tractor with bucket and trailer. That's $50,000. That would actually come out of the water sewer fund, not general fund. And then with the landfill, they're looking for an off-road dump truck. They're requesting that for the 2021 year. And again, that would come out of the solid waste fund and not general fund.
Our landfill equipment is very antiquated, and I think we all know why, but.
That's why I was smiling. Who is head of that department?
Mr. Hill, Mr. Frugal, but, and of course, y'all know how he operates. He may not spend that money until something happens to his current dump truck, but we thought we would go ahead and appropriate it out of the landfill fund. And that's all.
So when we return from lunch, the last thing we have on the agenda are discussion, commissioner discussion items with our presentation.
I do think that the capital or the equipment that Mr. Boone is asking for in the water and sewer fund would be offset by outside expenditures. What it's looking at is we now have to go outside to get all of our taps made. and paying a contractor, and as they get busier, that gets more and more expensive. I think he's thinking with this piece of equipment, he can start doing a lot of them with the people that he currently has, so it would certainly be a savings realized there. It looks like a lot of, $50,000 a lot of money, but it don't take long to do it when you pay an outside contractor to do utility taps like we're currently always done.
Yeah, and again, the expenditures, the 37 pages in the very back, most everything is pretty non-expansion, just rolling over what we spent last year to next year. There are some adjustments based on the prior year's actual expenditures, and just the need to balance the budget. But again, I urge you to look at those. I know you can't do it between now and when we have our discussion today, but
Cool.
look at them, and we can have a follow-up budget meeting if y'all so wish.
Yeah, I think we've made, well, depending on how the rest of them feel, we may need to do that. I don't think it would take a long time, but I certainly feel the majority of us want to go through these some. The key thing is, in the expenditure, did we treat all departments pretty much the same, the way we looked at their requests?
Yes, just about every department is flat.
We did.
You had the two new ambulances in here, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
They're in.
Okay. I just started thinking about that. I will say that the sheriff's budget, instead of one budget, he's got, in some counties, the entire sheriff's office is one budget. We've got it broken down into five or six budgets, but four of them are detention center, sheriff's office, court security, and the highway safety grant. In the aggregate, they are going to be getting more than they got last year. But in some of those individual budgets, based on reduced gas costs and other needs, a single component of the sheriff's office budget may show a reduction. But in the aggregate, those four budgets together, I'm not talking about the SRO budget. That's totally reimbursed by the school system.
Right.
But those other four budgets in the aggregate, it is a increase, probably the largest increase of any budget, so.
Where we heard the two first outside agencies talk about increased cost in retirement, increased cost in health insurance, I'm sure we got the same thing here.
We do.
We do.
Okay.
And that was
And-
factored in as part of our increases with salary and benefits.
Okay, so when you put that in there, did you do something else to get it back flat, or is that going to be an increase that we see?
That's pretty much the increase that we see.
Okay, is those two items?
Right, those
Okay.
two items, and then our inducement where that's an increase that we calculate our estimate every year for our current inducement agreement, so that was an increase.
Our health insurance projection, I think, was 2.5% increase, and that's starting in January. So they used, one of the other two entities that were here before used a 5%.
I think one of them was 6%.
Yeah, but we don't know until the State Health Plan Board sets the new rate. So we're estimating 2.5%.
That was probably one of the two smartest things we've ever done there, wasn't it? That being one of them, get out of Medicare was the other one.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Yeah, going with the state plan, and, you know, we had 970 subscribers, including family, and the limit was 1,000 subscribers. So we just got in the state health plan. And what it has done, obviously, is it's given us consistency.
Oh, yeah.
And we're getting, our employees are getting the same health plan that 300 state employees are getting. No better, no worse. So,
But our curve on that increase is tremendously flatter than it was over
Right.
the last 2 or 3 years. It was gonna kill us.
Right.
Too much longer.
We
You
budget-
mentioned,
I'm sorry, we budget 5 months at our existing rate and 7 months at what we anticipate as a new rate because the state health plan is on a calendar year.
Okay.
We're on a fiscal year.
that, you mentioned ambulances. I know, I heard y'all talking between 1 new and 2 new ones. What's in here?
we've got 2.
You got 2 new ones in here.
He agreed to 1, but we feel like we need to replace, he's got 20,
I think it's 15 ambulances.
no, he's got 22, 23 ambulances, I believe. And he initially asked for 5, and we cut them to 2. Then we were trying to find some savings.
Right.
Talked to him about 1. He was willing to accept 1, but we just feel like we should give him that second one also. And it will be a new one, not a remount.
And that's the big reason, because you're gonna have to stop doing remounts, and you're gonna have to start buying the whole unit every year.
That's
So
right.
To go in the southern part of the county, that what?
No, sir. No, sir, everywhere.
Right.
Because the state ain't gonna approve them.
I got you.
You know, so it's either now or later, and
But it would be your intent to, we budget how we budget, to look at the revenue stream going forward, and based on that revenue stream, if it fools us and we have more revenue, then we've got a priority list of other things that we could pull in maybe towards the end of the year or something like that.
Both capital,
That would be maybe even whatever priorities are, I don't know,
Yeah.
employee increase or whatever.
Employees.
both capital
hope
and
we-
operating, both
Right.
employee raises and capital requests that aren't being funded now that may be funded later.
One thing
in
that
the
we,
year.
one thing that we did, well, when I talked about our reductions across the board, every department, we treated them the same with the fuel cost, and we took an average number of miles. That's how we always calculate, but we did, every department has the same calculation for fuel cost.
And we
Depending-
use $2
I believe that's
per
correct.
gallon.
And the other item that we did, our travel and training, every department has reduced travel and training. I mean, we all need that to make sure that we stay up on our standards and our requirements. But with where we are right now and the travel being reduced, that was one area that we felt like we could cut back on and hopefully be able to put back into place. But we did that across the board with every department.
Yeah, but we anticipate travel, there'll be much less travel over the next 6 months. Conventions, the NACO convention, the state association, I doubt they're going to have annual meetings. And then in departments, they're going to be doing things online for training, and so you're going to have less travel. So we did adjust those travel budgets.
Well, let's recess for lunch, and how long the board want? You want to 30 minutes or 45 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes?
30 minutes.
All right, we would reconvene then at 12:45. I'll call us back to order at this time from our lunch recess. And we are, of course, doing our budget workshop at this meeting today only. And Ms. Wood, were you at the end of your presentation? You got anything else you want to say? Or are you just available for questions?
I'm available for questions.
Okay, all right, Mr. Lamb, I'll turn it over to you then, sir.
Basically, this is the time when commissioners can raise questions, discuss any issue that's on your mind, discuss any recommendation that's been made by staff. Okay, This is just an opportunity for the commissioners now to ask any questions of staff, to talk about any particular budget or any line item that they wish to dive into, personnel, salaries. I think there's been some discussion on raises, whether now or later. So we'll open it up for questions and
Okay.
comments. Again, you can see that we have put together a budget that's just as flat as can be, to $2,500 difference on 90-some million dollars. And we had to cut some things that we probably didn't want to cut, and we didn't want to cut. But we felt like we should give y'all a flat budget, and but there may be some wiggle room for something, this or that, but we just feel like we needed to present y'all a flat budget, and that's what you've got here.
Okay. All right, well, first of all, I hope presenting a flat budget is going to be good enough as far as projection of revenue, because I would hate to have had y'all's job this time projecting revenues. We've got two problems going on, really. It affects us somewhat, but we've got the state situation where we didn't get a budget for the year we are in now, totally, and I'm not sure if we'll get a budget in the short session, whether we'll get one out of that or not. Probably, may well not, or this year's short session, long session, I'm not even sure which one they're in. But that makes it somewhat difficult in some of your departments. But if y'all are comfortable with the revenues, I think anybody would understand why we would have pretty much a flat budget this time. What I've heard from conversations with the board individually as we are together or talking, whatever method we're communicating, is we were very interested in continuing doing something for our employees this year as we had done the last 2 years. Very fortunate that we had revenue growth. We could give a 5% raise 2 years in a row. I didn't expect us to do that this year, but I think the board in its entirety wanted to do something. I do understand maybe a pause on that until we at least get to the beginning of July and see what revenues are for these next 3 months, particularly as it relates to sales tax. But I think Mr. Outlaw may have mentioned it earlier, that we should ask y'all from the board to prioritize what you see going back into the budget, if indeed revenues are better than we think they may be sitting here today. And then, of course, I'd always, as precautious as I am about spending taxpayers' money, and the other board members are the same, I'd also, if it gets worse than what we think, have some idea of what we would ratchet down that we are going to approve, because we've got to approve this budget in the month of June regardless. We're really not going to know what our revenues are. I'm not as concerned about ratcheting down, because I think you've been conservative, as I would be potentially hopeful to have more revenue to put back in. And to me, and I think I've heard several boards say, one of the key things would be raises for our employees, again, to put at the top of the list of what we may be able to look at doing at the end of the first quarter, maybe at the end of the second quarter, whenever that time may be, when we can project it more accurately than what we can here this morning or this afternoon.
Well, let me, just for y'all's
sure.
perspective, every 1 cent, every 1% raise is approximately $325,000 in county funds. So I just thought y'all might want to know that when you're doing.
Yeah, I do recall that. That's what the number is. And really, the things, I hope the board understands that Commissioner Combs and the rest of it, I know we'd like to give employees a raise today in the budget. But I really think we got to understand that anytime we give a raise, it's a reoccurring expense. It's going to show up from that point on. It affects several other cost factors. And I still have some concern, how many of our businesses are going to be able to open back up once this is over with? We're going to lose some business, we know, or we think we are going to. I just think a little bit longer window, other than putting it in the budget in July, is to get us 3 months under our belt. And unless things change quickly, we can do it, we meet every month. We can do a budget amendment every month to do employee raises or whatever else we see we need to move in. I'm just wanting to move forward with caution. And the other thing, we've all got to understand, we looked at our capital improvement projected cost yesterday with the Davenport Company. We all saw that with what we got on the books, been the addition to the jail and the new school, we are maxing out our ability to pay with our current revenue streams moving forward. Certainly, we're in excellent financial shape, but when you look at your revenue streams, and that's comparing it to your monthly checkbook at home, you may have plenty of wealth, you may have plenty of other things, but you got to pay them bills each month as you go, or either you got to find new income. So I think we have pretty much peaked that out in the next at least 3 or 4 years until some of the rest of the debt goes away. It gets better pretty quickly, but we've got about 3 or 4 real lean years in there in the one category of ability to pay the incurred debt that we are keeping. That's just my feelings on the budget.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just
Sure.
make a comment.
Sure.
I just would say, and I listened to all the information, and unless someone could convince me otherwise, I think our priority should be for something related to the employees. But with that said, I think we've got to look at the revenue stream going forward. So if we looked at the revenue stream going forward, third quarter, end of fourth quarter, whatever, and we saw that that revenue stream supported an increase for our employees, why could we not make that increase retroactive back to July the 1st?
Well, there's no reason why you can't do that.
We could do that.
But it would, of course, be a one-time payment because you'd be beyond that for a portion of it.
It doesn't have to be a one-time payment.
Well, for example, and in discussions with others, if you had a 2% raise that you were able to support giving the employees,
Right.
or 3%, whatever, in January the 1st, and then you could make that retroactive back to July the 1st, and then going forward, it's just a 2 or 3% increase.
That's how the state does it. When they pass a budget, say in
It's not a bonus.
August, September, they go back to July 1 in a lump sum for the first month that they know what that increase is. And so you get a bump, but then you go back to what the
Yeah,
percentage.
you're going to have a lump sum payment to catch you up.
Yeah. That's
right.
But then you're going to have the increase in your salary moving forward.
Exactly, I understand that. But that's exactly what I think we should consider. The only other thing I wanted to mention was this boiler that we're talking about. So if I'm an employee of the county and I'm sitting in this building in the dead of winter and I lose that boiler, then that's a bad situation. You've got the summer, you've got backup to support cooling. So it just seems to me if you're going to add anything immediately, you should add that boiler. Go ahead and buy that boiler. If it's a 2-3 week lead time, if you sit here and lose that boiler and don't have the capabilities to get it in, that's a real bad situation. So I think the employee increase, if we've got the revenue stream to support it, I think it should be retroactive back to July 1. But I think the boiler is a pretty immediate need, just me.
And I can't sit here today and tell you, at one time, a year or two ago, I knew how this building worked. I've been through several other projects since then, Ag Center. I don't know exactly the severity of it, but I think it's pretty severe. But you're right.
Well,
If we lose heat, we need to have that boiler on
I
hand.
think Jonathan should be
Jonathan
conferred
can
on that.
yeah, he can certainly work that out, no question
And
about
you
it.
got a lot of Jonathans that's working that we just don't know about. Probably.
Right.
That's doing their job. I agree with, I just think we can't survive without our employees. And the ones we got are good employees. Every company has some bad apples.
I think the employees always know that they're number one with us, and we proved that just a few
I
years
mean, it ain't
back.
gotta be a big one, at least give them
So,
something they know we
you know,
care.
if we can do something and support it retroactive, great.
I agree with you
But
on,
even if we can't, at some point, they know we will make it up somehow.
we're gonna,
We've done it before.
I'll go with you.
Well, the salaries of employees is one of the larger parts of our budget.
It is.
So, right now, I would tend to agree with Commissioner Outlaw. It shouldn't be, he didn't say it this way, but this is the way I'm gonna say it. It shouldn't be the number one priority at this point. There are some critical needs, and he mentioned one, is that boiler. And that can be a very uncomfortable thing if it falls on you all at once and you don't have the resources there to replace it. Or you got to go borrow money from the bank in order to do it. I would think that the employees would understand that they know that we are here to do what is necessary as it relates to the employees. And whatever, even if we have to delay it, it can be retroactive back to July 1. And I think we ought to keep that into consideration as we do this next fiscal year budget.
All right.
Well, if you wanted to think about that, and you could work that two ways. Donna says there's no problem going back and making it retroactive, but if you get to December and you decide January 1st, you want to give a 2% raise retroactive or a 4% raise going forward, it probably won't be a whole lot of difference. You know, you could work it out one way or another. The only thing next year when you got ready to add 3 or 5 or whatever to that 4, it would be bigger. So you'd probably be better off to go retroactive. I'll be honest with you. I come in here today with thoughts of one thing we need to do, a priority, is get our people another raise. But I know what the situation is, and we'll just keep on talking, see what everybody else's opinion is. But
I think we all support that opinion.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that we support it.
Right.
But the last thing you want to do is give something and then look at taking it back away, which a lot of
well,
companies cut salaries.
it's harder to take it back than it is to give it, you know.
It's much
Everybody
harder.
knows that. And I'm like Fred and Wayne, I think our top priority should be our people and their pay. And we got people that makes less than $30-something thousand a year. And I just think we need to work on it, but then we got something called a virus that come around. So if we kind of all agree that, hey, y'all, we'll do something when things pick back up.
I think we're about that far apart right there. I think we're about that far apart, none.
Yeah, I did want to ask one question on page 1. Why under administration, the salaries, the 2019 actual was 496. We budgeted 529.
We took,
And now we're down to 386.
we took Patsy McGee's and her assistant and created a new budget for grants.
Oh, okay, so you put it down there under that, okay, I got
Yeah.
you, no problem.
It's now a separate budget than administration.
They do something every year, Dan, to keep us confused.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
to keep that administration budget down. Let me say one thing. The April sales tax, we will know that number on June 1st, the day we present the budget. And then we will have a public hearing some date after that. But on June 1st, we will know what the April sales tax are. I think that's going to be a very telling month because if we're starting to reopen our communities piecemeal like it appears we are, then I would think April will be the bottom month. So
You would think.
in between when I present the budget on the 1st and when you approve it, again, we've recommended either the 22nd or the 29th of June to have your public hearing and approve the budget. You know, that issue on salaries can be addressed then or again in October or December, based on any way y'all have talked about, whether retroactive to July 1 or beginning then. But I think the big telling month is going to be April, and we'll know those numbers June 1st.
Mr. Lamb, I understand what you're saying, but there's another factor in the April that I'm not sure we're taking into account. In talking to one of our key grocery stores in the county, who happened to be a personal friend of mine over in my area, he tells me his sales went up 240% in April alone. And what he explained to me was it was the people were buying stuff and hoarding it's the wrong word, but they were stocking stuff up that they normally didn't buy. He says now, I asked him the weekend, it's gone back down to double what it was prior. And he's comparing sales for March to March like we do, April to April. It's gone back down to double, so it's gone back down 40%, but it's still got 100% down. And you know, he just says people are buying stuff and they're storing it. He said every freezer in the county is full, every storage room in a house is full of something. So at some time, that's going to level back out again.
Right,
I think so. Yeah. I believe we really got to look at it more than a month. I think we're going to have to see 2 or 3 months.
I agree. Agreed.
Somewhat.
You're going to have to look at an average.
You're going to have to look at an average, yeah.
I think you need to look at it
but
through,
the more you
start looking at it after the third quarter.
Yeah,
Right.
but the more you have stacked up, how you tend to be loose and just use it up quick and you're right back.
And,
Maybe.
and one other thing.
That's what people tend to do. They got a big supply of something, oh, just go on.
And another positive thing is these folks got these stimulus checks now. They're going to spend that money.
No, we got
I think they're going to spend every dime
You
off it.
got that right.
spending money local.
Yeah, but that's a check in place of a paycheck in many cases.
Well, in a lot of cases, it ain't, because
Yeah.
I know folks still working,
well, it
getting
is.
their
I agree
same
with
money, and they got a stimulus check.
Yeah.
Spend your money in Nash County.
One thing that will perhaps balance out in the next budget year, I think I sent y'all a article that talked about the legislation delayed motor vehicle renewals and which is the tax that comes to the county for 5 months. But it's my understanding that it's not a permanent 5-month delay for whenever you renew it, that next year it's supposed to catch up. So people that aren't paying, that have a delay from April, May, and June that can pay it in the next fiscal year, they're going to have a second bill come due in April, May, and June of next year. So we may, of course, we won't know those numbers until they come in. But if people renew when they're supposed to in the future, those people that delayed it for 5 months or 3 months or 2 months will get 2 payments in the next fiscal year. So I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah,
Well, we need to be.
well, the way they're operating now on renewal, tag renewal, sticker renewal. They backed it off 60 days. And it's the department, the way they're operating. I don't know why they're like that, but you got to, I know my wife just renewed her license, that's different. But they were sending her, they were saying she couldn't even get an appointment here in Rocky Mount in 50 days. And said, if you won't do it now, you got to go to Raleigh, Smithfield, or Salisbury. And so she went online.
Yeah.
But then they said, well, even going online, you aren't going to get your license within 60 days. But you're just going to have a piece of paper.
Because of this crisis, what we've done is create all these exceptions to the rule. And y'all probably heard from your legislators that the delay of the income tax being due from April 15th to July 15th is...
I saw that number. It's a huge number.
Huh?
I saw that number, what it's going to cost.
Yeah, that's going to be a big effect on the state. That's just an example of when you go off schedule,
Yep.
you can't, it's harder to predict
Yep.
what your revenues are.
I think that's really what we're discussing here, is just try to get a handle on the revenue. We've got a job here. I listened to the school board people this morning. I don't know how in the world they even attempt to come up with a budget, quite frankly, with the revenue streams
Community
they've
college
got.
had a 3% pay increase in their budget.
Not across the board.
Well, that's what she said.
Well, that's not what she said.
What'd she say?
She said that was to catch up maintenance and custodial type people, unless I'm mistaken.
And
That's a
some of
very
them would get
small
5%
percentage of
that was
their
paid under
population.
30,000.
Do what?
She said, I thought she said 3% and then 5% for some that was paid under $30,000.
Donna can elaborate, but I think what she's talking about is a very small percentage of their population out there.
Do we
How
pay?
many people did she say they had out there? It was less than 8, wasn't it?
I think
And
she
add
said
one more?
Huh?
I think she said 8 people that would get a 5%
Eight
raise.
people
They
would
they
get
have
5%.
Well,
9
That's
custodial.
what
say
she's asking for
5%.
the money for. That, we don't know what they're gonna get yet.
They're not going to get anything if we don't give it to them.
Because they're local paid people.
Yeah.
Well, but it's in the budget, I guess. It's included in these figures that you gave us today, right?
Well, it is included, but it's not approved. That's for this board to decide.
I know that.
And I mean, I'm an advocate for the community college, but the community college, and I've had this discussion, understands that we've got a revenue stream that we've got to be attentive to, and when that revenue stream supports spending, then we will try to support additional spending, but they understand that we are not necessarily going to just approve everything they want starting July the 1st.
And one other factor, just to throw it all into hodgepodge, is that they're still talking Washington about funds for states and counties. The proposal that got shot down a couple weeks ago, this county would have gotten $8 million in that proposal. Now, I don't expect that, but that's still sort of floating out there. I don't know if it may end up just going to states, and then the states can do what they did last week here in North Carolina, give some of that money that they got from the feds, $3 trillion or whatever, they gave part of that to counties and special programs that benefit counties. So we're just in a period of uncertainty. I mean, that's in a nutshell. We don't know what 6 months from now is going to look like financially.
I think one of the biggest challenges for us going forward is going to be the public school system. the public school system if we're not able to support them in years to come to keep their classroom sizes down, improve our teacher supplements, and then let them pay teachers the respect that they're due all of us, then that's how we attract and retain good teachers. And he talked about these lateral entry teachers. They're great if that's all you can get, but that's like, I don't have a job, I've got a degree, so I just entered the school system as a lateral entry teacher. You lose a lot in expertise when you bring teachers in like that. They have to come up a learning curve too. So the way we retain and attract teachers is we put them in a work environment that is acceptable, and we pay them well.
I agree with you 100% on
And
that.
that to
That's
me-
why I asked him with the question, why is it hard to hire teachers?
Yeah, that's,
And I think it's pay,
well,
you know,
that's,
and environment and.
Supply.
They got a lot of things.
I
huh?
think that's a part
Supply.
of it, but I think
Yeah.
a part of it is just feeling worthy, feeling like they are respected and needed, and, you know,
And if they only had, how many did we say? 80-some graduate from East Carolina with a teaching degree?
42.
42.
42, then there's no desire for a young person to go to college to be a school teacher.
But I'm
It just tells you.
I'm just saying, going forward, that is going to be
Yeah.
a big need for this county.
Yeah,
It's just something we need to be thinking about, because it's coming.
it's gonna be an education period. Young people are just drifting away from becoming certified school teachers because they can make so much money out there, either being an entrepreneur or working for some other company or some law firm, and you won't have the headache with disciplinary problems that we have in our school system with this young population now. And you can't discipline because first thing you know is child abuse.
I do think our people is the immediate need, and I do think there'll be a level of certainty that we don't have now that we'll have after the third quarter.
Problem. I agree with that. Ms. Lou, I generally have to call on you to get your wisdom, which is always forthcoming. What do you have on your mind this morning about the budget?
I think it's a good budget, sounds good, that we can work on, and we have as he said, we still have a lot of work to do, but just considering everything, and I was just listening to all the comments about our employees. Excuse me. And you know, that's always one of my concerns is we take care of our employees because that's what keeps the county going. They are our backbone per se. I know taxpayer money pay them, but we always want to look after them first, and little or much, let them know we appreciate it when we can't give it to them, but when we can, let's do whatever we can for our employees. Because I fully believe we have some of the best, so. But anyway, and it's some more work to be done, I think, in the budget per se, but thank to Mr. Lamb, our manager, and other, all department heads for giving us a good budget, because as usual, always give us one that is workable, and I just think we as Nash County are all working good and doing a great job considering what we have to deal with, and looking at some of the other counties. But basically, it's looking good, and like I said, we may have some little nicks and crooks in there before it's finally settled, but maybe I have some more questions than I will have later, but I want to absorb through some of this, and but everything right now, I think if we can make it work, it looks good. And I think if everybody will accept it, work with it, I think all our citizens of Nash County will be proud of our budget for this year.
If I may, I thank you for giving me credit, but most of the credit goes to Donna Wood and her staff.
Well, we know that, but we just got to make it feel good. Donna, I'm just trying to make it feel good. We know you did it.
She's trying to follow the chain of command, Mr. Lamb.
You know, we got to let men folk think they're the boss.
We done figured that out.
I don't, Where I live, I ain't the boss.
I know you exception.
Mr. Leggett, you had said much. Is there anything on your mind?
I'd like to also thank the staff for the budget that y'all have prepared. And I think as a little more time goes on, we have some definitive numbers to go on. I think that is going to be a more appropriate time to make adjustments, hopefully up and in the favor of our employees. And I also want to commend you on the job you've done to help provide stability to our county employees during this time, you know, making a good, safe work environment, either at home or in the county building for them, and allowing them that stability of a job to be able to keep coming to work too. I think that's been very, very positive for our county.
Thank you.
Ms. Wells?
Well, that everybody done said everything. The only thing I just want to tell the staff how much we appreciate them, and we're going to do everything we can to find y'all a raise.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Outlaw, you got anything else you wish to add?
No, I just would like for you to talk to Jonathan and get his take on that board.
I promise you I'll do that, sir. Mr. Bellfield, anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, was a question originally. I too would like to give, can't imagine his staff credit for putting together a good budget here. But I do, on our outside agency funding, I think my sister's house asked for $10,000. We gave them, we didn't put anything in the budget. Need asked for $5 and didn't put anything in the budget. Why was that?
My sister's house, they were under a grant that we had assigned someone to work with them. We billed them for, under the grant, $36,000 for 3 or 4 or 5 months. And they ended up not getting those funds, I'm told, because they didn't fill out the proper paperwork to get those funds drawn down. So we were out $36,000. Last year, y'all appropriated $9,200. We had paid them the first quarter of $2,300. So the remaining $6,900 we held, and we have applied it as a set-off against that 36. So the 9,200 they would have gotten this year, we are proposing that we apply that towards that 36,000. Because they had committed, they signed a contract with us to provide those funds as reimbursement for the time that the sheriff's office devoted to them. So that's my sister's house.
Yeah, I understand. Now, they are committed to paying, reimbursing that money back to the county.
No,
They're not?
What's your question, Mr. Bellfield? Have they agreed to pay it back? Or what are you asking?
Have they agreed to? Yeah.
No, they just, we billed them, correct? We billed them, do we bill them every month?
Our last bill,
And they don't respond?
it was July, August, and September. The last bill went out in September, so we haven't resubmitted.
Yeah. We don't bill them every month, but we have billed them for services rendered and under a contract that they signed with us. And they have not paid us.
And have they responded in any way?
They gave up the grant for the following year, but the services rendered were for the first year of the grant that apparently, as we're told, we just know what we were told, they never filled out the proper paperwork to get reimbursed by the state for that. And I forget, which program was that? It was a shelter or some kind of?
It was a grant with the sheriff's office where the sheriff's office provided some services for my sister's house.
Yeah. But it was a
It
certain,
was the operation going on down in the Rocky Mount office, which they closed up that office and moved out. But that whole office was funded with that grant that they gave up for the next year.
right. The
And
ma-
it was
they,
providing a lot of legal assistance to the people that needed my sister's house, because they had lawyers on staff that didn't get paid either.
That's right, that's right.
There were a lot of payrolls that didn't get paid. It just got a situation where a lot of the activities got to be questionable that were going on. And that's probably about all I should say in a public setting.
So it sounds like some inefficiency operation going on there.
right.
Well,
Now, and
I can understand now that I know more
Sure.
about the situation.
right.
If they don't
Okay.
respond, that's really a problem as far as I'm concerned. At least they could have responded in some way, even if it wasn't nothing but a telephone call, or really let you know the situation, and we're gonna work toward giving that money back. But don't say nothing.
Yeah, and on the need request, that is a new request. That is a new outside agency request. I know you're on that board, right?
Yeah.
You and Stacy.
Stacy's on there.
Amy.
Right, and Amy.
And another one of Amy employees, which are,
Right,
her name leaves me right this moment, I apologize.
Right.
We have 4 people with the county on the board.
right. And again, that is a new agency, and we felt like it's up to the Board of Commissioners to fund new agencies rather than us recommending that you fund a new agency, especially in times like this.
I have a question.
Well, on that one, the reason I asked, because we got that organization moving now in a very positive direction than what it was.
Bill, Phil, I would look at it as a similar situation that we would want to look at in that particular organization. We've got 5 counties, or 4 counties, 3 counties.
Three.
I mean,
Three
three
counties.
I think it'd be a situation is what Mr. Lamb's alluding to. If this board decides it wants to start putting money in need, it needs to come from the board to the staff rather than the staff recommending we start funding a new agency. But on the other hand, if we're gonna start funding them, it should be funded like many others we're in by each one of the counties at some formula or some method by which, and I don't know what that is. I think in addition to need on there would need a little bit more work by the board possibly, because y'all got board members from your board, been the need board. You've got board members from all 3 counties there. And so if y'all want to discuss that and come to an agreement between the 3 counties that each county is going to put in X amount of money starting at the same time, that would be an appropriate ask, I think, rather than us just begin it without having dialogue with the other counties that receive benefit from it.
Well, the budget hadn't been presented to the board yet.
Sure.
So,
And they may have asked the other counties. That's an unknown to us this morning. Why don't you look into that, or you and Stacy look
will.
into it, and then
I
get
will.
back with the board, and we could certainly add that if the board wishes to.
yeah. And we're getting ready to change the name. It's going to change from Need to Nash Edgecombe Wilson. It's going to be the name of it.
That's new instead of need, then.
Yeah,
With the ED at the end, new.
yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Economic development,
I'm not
right?
sure where it's going
Nash
to be,
Ed-
July 1 or October 1.
Okay.
But it will change.
Okay.
It's going to bring Wilson more in, rather than we just providing services. It's going to bring Wilson in where there'll be more obligation coming from them also.
Well, look into it and get back to the board on what
I
all the
will.
counties are doing.
I will.
Okay. Ms. Wells?
Because I can remember years ago that the county did fund need.
Man, I don't
Not,
remember.
not since we've been on the board, but I can remember when I was working, yeah,
Oh,
the county
if
did
it hadn't
fund
been
these.
since you on the board, it sure hadn't been since I was on the board either. Ms. Wells?
Yeah, I guess I asked the county manager, this is back to my sister's house, about the money that they owe us. But it was something about the sheriff's department. Now, they pay the sheriff's department themselves, right, not out of the money they get from us. 'Cause I understand they paid the sheriff's department $86,000,
Out of a grant,
but I mean, they paid them.
yeah.
They paid them some funds, and then they stopped paying and didn't pay the last 2 or 3 months of it.
That's correct. And speaking of multi-county organizations equally contributing, Edgecombe does not contribute to my sister's house, even though they have offices in Nashville and Tarboro.
Well, I'm not surprised at that, but
All right, anything else on the budget? Any question? Mr. Lamb, leaving here today, or the board itself too, do we schedule another meeting, or do we get to see where we are at the 1st of June and see what direction do you need from the board to keep moving?
Well, we're planning to have our presentation June 1st meeting,
Of the budget,
right?
okay?
But anytime after that presentation, that day or the day of the public hearing or any day prior to July 1, y'all can add, just like last year you added the 500,000 for the detention center. Y'all can do that at any time. Regarding the boiler, if I may, we had 3.5 million fund balance appropriated, and we got it down to 3 million like we did last year. So there may be a little wiggle room there if Jonathan thinks we really ought to get that on the shelf, ready to go.
I'll discuss with Jonathan, and he'll be making a recommendation to you.
Okay.
I just don't quite remember the facts about that boiler sitting here today.
Yeah.
See where we are with that and get him to check the availability of it and so forth.
Yeah.
And then we'll can make a little bit better determination on what we should be doing with it.
Yeah, but we could amend the fund balance appropriated for non-capital to $3,350,000 if that's what y'all wanted to do.
Well, it sounds like it's a key item for the board this morning.
Yeah.
Not to get ourselves in trouble with it. I couldn't agree with that more because we had that happen last time and we had to shuffle employees and we don't want to do that again.
That's right.
What I hear loud and clear.
Regarding having another meeting, I would say it would be good to recess. We would need at least 2 weeks to get.
Well, let me pause
Yeah.
a moment and ask the board before you make that statement. Where y'all think where you are this morning? Do y'all want to study the documents you got and then get back together in a couple of weeks? Are you good with what we discussed this morning, or what's the pleasure of the board?
be nice to have time to look at it.
Be nice to have time to look at it and then maybe get back together, recess until another time towards the end of this month before our next meeting? Is that what I hear you say, Ms. Wells?
Yes.
Everybody okay with that?
No,
You're not?
I don't see, for me, I don't see a need of us
I'll do what
getting
Rick
back
said.
together.
All right. Mr. Outlaw, what?
I'm good.
The staff have heard our comments.
Sure.
And some recommendations. And, oh yeah, I forgot one that I intended to make. May I do it now?
I shouldn't let you because you're saying you're good over there. I'm kidding with you. Go ahead.
I'm throwing it out for discussion. Our farmer's market. In our advisory board meeting, there were a lot of things that was said that could be done at our farmers market. And I just feel like maybe we ought to take a look at having a full-time person, making that position full-time rather than part-time. Because the lady, I can't even think of her name now.
Yeah.
Who seemed to be very energetic and really moving that farmers market. But she doesn't have enough time to do it, because I question her pretty strong on how you gonna get this done. Are you gonna be able to get volunteers to work with her? She wasn't sure of that. But she said that she could, she said she would be glad for it to be a full-time.
We, the advisory board, which Ms. Leggett and Mr. Belfield are on, did request that to be a full-time position. Sandy Hall rewrote the job description to give additional duties. We just had a lot of new position, and we didn't feel like staff should start picking and choosing which new positions. But I'm not sure, that's probably about $25,000. I mean, if this board wants to make that a full-time position, that's up to this board. But again, we didn't want to favor one new position. There are other agencies that have asked for additional positions, and
I'll tell you.
Well, the position is there, it's just part-time.
Right.
And I think we ought to take a look at where we want to make it full-time.
I had some folks talk to me about that too, making that a full-time position, but I was afraid to say anything about it today, so I didn't. But I think there's a real need there that we need to take a careful look at. Susan probably got an opinion.
Right, well, I know the work is there for her, and it could make a better use of that facility.
I agree with you 100%, and I think all the commissioners got contacted about that. I certainly did by a couple of people. I also hear what you're saying, and my whole issue sitting here today is I haven't looked at all this stuff, and if the board can agree to it, I'd like to have some time to go through each department, see what we're doing. I know we've eliminated some part-time positions. We have turned down a lot of position requests. I don't know whether they're more important than a farmer's market without having time of benefit to study this, like all of us. So if we can agree on it, I'd like to be able to take this for at least a week, maybe 2 weeks, and really study what the ask was and then what the cut was to get where we are, and compare it with the one thing that you were talking about, Mr. Belfield.
Can we do it? I'm just throwing it. Can we do it on the same day our June meeting?
It's always hard to do that, Commissioner Combs, because
If we keep the meeting
we
short.
don't know what the agenda's gonna be then, and we don't control the items that come in. It may be when we get that agenda done, we might can.
It might be long if things open back up. We might have a
Well,
little
it may
crowd
be
for
real
fixing
long.
to
That's a
bombard
little bit
you, right.
hard for me, to say. And if he wants to present his budget that day and then have the public hearing later, is what I understood the schedule was. Is that right?
we just have to have 10 days between the presentation and the public hearing.
Okay, 10 days, okay. So we really should get back together one time so he can make the presentation at that June meeting.
May I make a suggestion? If there's a possibility, if the commissioners have a question, if you would like to email me the question, and then I can send out a response with your question to to all of the commissioners, just so when we do come back together, we'll have that information
Right.
all together.
That might eliminate a meeting.
I would just say, keep in mind that all of these positions are important to the person that has requested them, whether it be the farmer's market or wherever. So if the main thing is the employees overall, I think you got to have certainty to determine if that's our top priority or we're going to support that priority. We've agreed we would before we start doling out additional funding for part-time to full-time, this one, that one, I think we'd be wise to wait until we know what we've got. That's just me.
Is anybody objected to us coming up with a date to get back together after we've all had a chance to study what we got here?
Do it on a Monday or a Wednesday.
I would suggest Monday, the 17th, when you were scheduled to have a meeting anyway. 18th, I'm sorry, 18th.
We have a scheduled meeting
18th.
Monday the 18th at 1:30 is correct.
Yeah, but I think we were going to cancel that because of.
We were.
Yeah, I
conditions.
thought we had.
We did
Yeah.
cancel, and
Because
we've
Yeah.
got a Board of Trustees meeting at the college that day,
And
2
and
o'clock.
I have a doctor's appointment.
We'll do it at 9 o'clock that morning.
That's fine.
Fred, when is your doctor's appointment?
2:50 on the 18th.
Anybody object to doing it at 9 o'clock on the 18th? Wayne, that's okay with
Have a
you?
doctor's
Works for me.
appointment.
Well, that's
In the morning?
in the morning, and I
get
still
shots
have a
tomorrow. I'll be
conflict.
there tomorrow.
I still have a conflict down East
I thought you said in
Partnership,
2 weeks.
10 o'clock. It's from 10 to 12.
See, I never committed to the community college
I'd
until
be
our
here by
meeting was
10.
canceled.
Appointment that day before
That's
5.
correct. I'll vouch for that. You asked me to either
Right.
cancel or not to cancel
Right.
it.
I'm not putting that as a priority over this board, but this meeting was canceled.
How about the Tuesday after that?
All right, y'all told me when you can't meet, when can you meet?
Wednesday the
I
20th.
can meet later, I just have
Wednesday.
an 8:30.
Wednesday.
What is that?
The 20th?
The 20th is scheduled as Legislator Day in Raleigh. Is that canceled for sure?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
It's
that's.
council.
That's definitely canceled. Okay. All right, is that 20th on a Wednesday suit to everybody?
I could do that morning.
You can do that morning, 9 o'clock? Any opposition to that, Mr. Belfield, doctor's appointment?
Oh,
I don't know why you worry
No,
about them, they
no.
canceling them all anyway.
Since we can't, on Wednesday, since we can't meet at the church, now, we usually have noonday service on every Wednesday. But we're not having them now because of this
Okay.
virus. So Wednesday would be okay, I think.
All right, we're going to recess until May the 20th at 9 a.m. As Ms. Wood said, if you would go through there, what she's provided today, send her emails and get your individual questions answered. And then we can get back together. Probably shouldn't take over an hour, hour and a half, get a little more direction. Mr. Lamb, you're smiling.
No, that's
Is
right.
there something different you want to do?
No, I was smiling because, yeah, it wouldn't
'Cause you're
take more
happy,
than
okay.
an hour
You can't
or,
never tell when you smile and where you're
I'm
happy,
always
whether you
smiling.
disagree.
He smiles, you in trouble.
Big smile, you in trouble. I would a whole lot rather he smiled. All right, anything else? I passed out 2 pieces of paper. One of them I spoke about briefly yesterday was the contract with Oakley Collier Architects. That was approved unanimously last night at the school board meeting. That contract with them, I just made a copy of it, of what the final document was that we had worked on with Oakley Collier, just to give each one of the commissioners and the staff a copy of that. As I said, the fee did end up being 5.8593% of construction cost. I think it's a very good contract. I'm glad we were able to stay local. I believe they'll do us a great job, and what's in this contract is detailed very well in the document, so you got that. The other thing I handed out is, we had a little bit of discussion yesterday about the county employee retreats, and I didn't leave here with a great feeling, quite frankly. I just don't think the board should give any direction to the management about employee retreats, how to have them, where to have them. We certainly don't want a lot of money spent, but I think it should be left up to management. And I had run across this document in looking through my stuff from last year, and it was a department head retreat survey results. I read that again, and it, quite frankly, made me feel even more passionate that we shouldn't get involved in that as commissioners and give the management latitude to do the retreats ever how the employees want them done. If you read this document, it's got a lot of good information in it, a lot of comments about it. And with that said, I just asked that the board kind of let the management do retreats like they wish to do them. I want to provide you with this to read. I don't want one situation happening in anything we do to cause us to make drastic changes when maybe what we're doing is really a good thing. And that's my sermon on this particular item this morning.
I agree with you 100%, Mr. Chairman. I worked with a company 33 years, and they had a whole lot of meetings, retreats, party, whatever you call them. The company furnished the alcohol part of time, everybody brought their own. But it's kind of like Miss Lou said yesterday. We got to realize that everybody here is supposed to be adults.
Yep.
And, sorry about that. And I just think things like this, as bad as I hated to go to some stuff, this is good.
Yep.
And if you look at this right here,
Yep.
a lot of people got a lot of benefit out of it. And I just think it's, we need to, don't put a damper on something like this.
Well, greatly appreciate you agreeing with me, Commissioner. In my business, for many, many years, I would take my employees that were supervisors, which ended up being 32 people, and we'd go every other year. Couldn't afford to do it every year, but every other year we'd load up on a bus and we'd go off on a 4-day trip, 3 weeks before Christmas every year. And quite frankly, you know, looking back over those trips that we did 6 or 7 of them. We went to Nashville, Tennessee, we went to Florida, we went here, we went there, and it would cost the company quite a bit of money each time carrying that number of people. But the best time I've had during those 30 years were, quite frankly, some of those trips we went on. So with that said, I'd like to leave it open if nobody objects to it.
Leave it like it is.
Leave it like it is. Mr. Manager, I hope you hear us loud and clear. Mr. Belfield?
I want to get back at the first that you mentioned about the construction.
Yes, sir.
Of the school here. I'm looking at the design consultant fees.
Yes, sir.
$1,107,000. That's
Yes, sir.
going right back to what I've been saying all along. These projects, for somebody to be consulting or overseeing them is just too much money spent. And the other part I'm looking at up here, it says project, new Red Oak Elementary School replacement. And that's exactly what I've been saying all along. There's no consolidation.
Where do you see that at? I didn't see that.
It's no consolidation, it's building a new Red Oak Elementary School.
It says,
And that's why I can't support it.
Well, I must admit that got by me. It does say new Red Oak Elementary School replacement, but it's replacing 3 schools, and I apologize to you for that getting by me. It should have said Northern Nash, and as we know, that will be the school board's responsibility to name that
I realize
school.
it's their responsibility,
Yes, sir.
but what they did, they just yield to the political pressure there in Red Oak.
what it says is the existing Red Oak Elementary School campus.
Well, he's looking on the last page, I think,
Yeah.
Commissioner Leggett, under Exhibit A. I wished I had caught that, I'd got it changed. But I apologize to Fred and particularly to Ms. Richardson for not seeing that. And Mr. Belfield, I agree with you. The fee is, I did put percentage on there so you would see it is under 6%, which is just about as good as you're gonna get it. As we saw yesterday, we were paying more than that for the jail, which is a different kind of fee. And I'll assure you, that's not the fee that we got first. It was considerably more than that, and with the school board person that was chairing this and myself worked on getting it down, and this is where we ended up at. But I do think it's a good contract and a good architect to move that one forward. Mr. Lamb, you have anything else?
Could I mention one other thing, sir?
Ms. Wood? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
In 2012, I believe, Ann Edge's husband passed while serving on the Nash Rocky Mount School Board. Miss Edge recently passed last night. I forgot to mention this when the superintendent was here. LaShonda Washington was elected vice chair of that board. And I had mentioned this to the chairman. I don't want to set a precedent, but I think it would be appropriate if the chairman, on behalf of this board, could possibly send a letter to the school board thanking Ms. Edge for her service and just some words of recognition of her service to that school board.
I agree.
I think it'd be very appropriate.
I think it's very appropriate as well, and I'll be glad to get with staff and get that done, sir. And I'll provide a copy to the members when I do.
She was a
And I
fine
agree.
lady, and my wife worked with her for a number of years, and she had great respect for her, as I know we all did.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, great.
I'm actually in LaShonda's district.
What's that? You're in Shawna's district?
School
Okay.
board member.
All right. Madam Clerk, any business I need to take care of other than do a recess?
No, sir, that's
Everything
it.
else is good. And what was that date again?
20th.
May 20th.
20th, okay. I'd entertain a motion at this time to recess this meeting of the Nash County Board of Commissioners to May the 20th at 9 a.m. to continue work on the budget for next year.
Mr. Chairman, I offer motion that we recess this meeting until May the 20th.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Bellfield, second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? We stand recess. Thank y'all.
Thank you.